Thank you. Good evening. It's great to see everyone here this evening. And welcome to 2025. Here we go. First council meeting of the year. And you know, one of the things I love about our city council meetings is that we always open in prayer. And Pastor Craig Hansen, thank you for, I see on here it says United Nampa in prayer, and you have absolutely done that, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining with a group of people across our city and interceding and praying for us every single week. Thank you so much. And so it's very fitting to have you open us in prayer. So let's stand, and then the pledge.
Oh, and Mayor, I don't want to abuse the wonderful relationship we have and being able to be a guest here today, but I do want to share just a couple quick scriptures because I think it's so important. And I look at this is the place of God's governance for Nampa City, and I've firmly come to believe that in that case. And one of the things that we must do is that we must, first of all, acknowledge God as the great King and majesty over all things that man does. And so I like I said, this is really, really short, I promise. But out of Nehemiah, they came together, they brought out the Torah, the book of the law of Moses, which was actually God's law, and they read it to the people. And it says this: so they read distinctly from the book of the law of God, and they gave the sense or the understanding and helped them to understand the reading. And then going down to verse 10, it says, do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. When they understood the word of God and the principles that were contained within, the joy of the Lord blessed them, and they said, go and feast, go and have a great time. I'm looking forward to that in 2025, and I did it already in 2024, Christmas prime rib. My wife is a great cook. But with that said, they rejoiced because, in verse 12 it says this, because they understood the words that were declared to them. And in Psalms 119 it also talks about that the word of the Lord, the statute, the principles of the Lord bring joy to the heart of man, to the soul of man. That's what I want this council to be this year, and I'm praying for you in that capacity, even if you disagree, which you shouldn't, because I'll tell you what you need to do if you don't get along together, okay? But with that said, let's pray, and we verify the words of God by our prayers. Thank you, God, for all that you're doing. Bless this council this year. I thank you for each one of them that is here, that sits there and takes their time and serves us, the people of Nampa. I pray, God, for the group that's behind me, Lord, that have come for various business decisions or things that they need to present. I pray, God, your spirit dwell here in peace, in unity, the shalom of God, which is completeness. We thank you now for all that you're going to do this year for Nampa and for beyond, because Nampa is a shining city on a hill, and we believe that entirely and completely because your word is here, your truth is here. Bless us all now as we unite together to see the governance of God completed in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Let's say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Jingula.
Here.
Hills.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
Griffin. All present.
Thank you. So do we have any proposed amendments to the agenda?
Mayor, would appreciate if we could pull 15B off of the consent, along with F and G.
15B, 15F, and 15G. Is that correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Any other requests? Okay, with that, I would stand for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, with that, then I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'm sorry? As amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And thank you for the clarification, because I said that incorrectly. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda is 2, which is items moved from the consent agenda. And we will start with item number 15B. This item is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign an amended or restated agreement for the hookup of Victory Springs subdivision to the City of Nampa water system and agreement to be annexed into the City of Nampa. Daniel, thank you for making your way forward and being available to answer the questions.
Mayor, thank you. Council, as I look at this plat, the parts that are standing out at me is based on conversations that we've had on other matters here of late. And once again, we have a plat that we're asking the city to supply water to and to accept the agreement that will allow this plat to go forward. But my concern is that the right-of-way, once again, is being held back to the existing property, and the existing property is not a part of the annexation, if I'm reading the document right. And so it just seems like we're helping and moving forward on something, but at the same time, we're hampering future improvements and creating a continuation of stopgap right-of-way and sidewalks. And so then we have challenges for future councils to solve the start-stop on sidewalks. So I'm raising the issue, and it seems like our only opportunity to correct some of these items or ask for changes is during the annexation and the approval of the agreement. So need your thoughts and input on this.
So the mayor, Councilman Bills, the only reason this is back before us is because the county, when we did the agreement, we used our standard agreement that references both domestic water and sewer. When it went to the county, they read that as, well, you have to connect to both. And that was never the intent of the city or the developer because the sewer is not available there.
Right.
And so the issue with the request for additional right-of-way in that, the existing parcel there, you're correct that the prescriptive right-of-way is part of the plat, but the future right-of-way on the existing parcel is not. That was shown that way at the time that we had the public hearings. And so to change that, I'd look to legal to see if at this point that would be something that where it was not discussed in the public hearing or the conditions of approval at that time, whether that would be appropriate to change at this point. I'm not sure where it went through a public hearing process, whether that's appropriate or not. So I defer to our city attorney on that question.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Bills and Daniel, so what we have here is an agreement that's already in place. We have an agreement that says sewer and water. What we're simply doing is clarifying the fact that sewer isn't part of that plan. The previous approval, Daniel, that you mentioned, how long ago was that?
Let me go back. Yeah. July of 23.
23, okay. And that was, Daniel, on our part, a noticed public hearing?
Yes, so the pre-annexation process does go through public hearings at both Planning and Zoning and City Council prior to the approval of the outside city services agreement, so that we can look at and verify that the land use and what they are proposing is appropriate and what we would want to see under our comp plan. So yes, there was a public hearing both before City Council and Planning and Zoning prior to the approval of this agreement.
And then one more question, if I might. The public hearing for the approval was just that was always presented as just the water, not the sewer.
Correct.
So I would be cautious. Councilmember Bills probably wouldn't suggest changing that without some other kind of public hearing, but they've kind of already been through that process, and everybody's expectations are set as a result of that decision. So I wouldn't advise going there now.
We can certainly, they're trying to get their plat started with Canyon County. And as a part of that process, we can certainly provide comments to the county that we would recommend that the full right-of-way dedication happen on the out parcel. And during that public process with them, we can certainly ask the county to do that. I'm just, like the attorney said, I'm concerned that we've gone through our public process and there's that expectation that's already been set with the entitlement.
I appreciate that. I recognize those issues. I guess my main reason to ask this to come off of the consent was to have opportunity to ask council and mayor and staff to consider that we should be amending our ordinances to reflect how to deal with these situations, because we spent a bunch of time in December on the issue, and it just seems like as we soon will be looking at the Southwest Area Plan and be asked to approve that, there's a mass of these type of deals sitting around both on the north side and on that southwest side that's going to continue, some on the southeast, and this just seems like we're going to forever hamstring the future to have to go back and either condemn or pay a healthy price to get that right away, to have continuity. And it seemed like a year ago that was a main item that was coming through in some of the hearings was continuity of sidewalks, and we had one hearing that was pretty vocal about continuity of sidewalks, and then we're not addressing it in our own ordinances. So I kind of feel like council, if you're in concurrence, we should be asking staff to bring that to the top of the pile, so to speak, so because there's going to be multiple of these coming forward, I think, this year. And I just wanted to use this issue tonight to bring it on top of the table. That's
Councilman Bills, thank you for that. I think it's a very good point. I think staff is listening. And so, Mark, thank you for being here, because this is important for you in hearing as we move to the future, that we need to take these into consideration and bring them forward at the time that we make these decisions. So I think I do, and we don't ever disagree with our legal counsel. I agree with our legal counsel that at this time, we have already made a commitment, and this is a clarifying decision. And so with that, I don't think we can change. I would ask for a motion to approve this, but the point is well taken, and I think it needs to be considered as we move to the future. So with that, any further comments? What is the will of the council on this item?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to authorize you to sign the amended and restated agreement as placed in our packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
The other item we have moved over, and before I do that, Councilman Bills, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I think that was excellent. 15F is the other item that we moved forward. I think this has Jeff's name on it, so Jeff, you can make your way up to answer questions. F is an action item. It's to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign the Purdom Sewer Trunk Project Phase 1 Madison to Canada task order for the owner's advisor services with Brown and Caldwell in the amount of $99,952. It is approved in the budget. So, and the question on that one.
I have, go ahead if you have.
Because F and G are on the same project, if I'm understanding correctly.
Correct.
Yes, they are.
So So
Okay.
my main question's on G, but I suggested F and G because they're on the same.
They're tied together? Okay.
Yes, thank you. I thought that last year that Brown and Caldwell returned some $200,000. Is that somewhere in the ballpark? They gave back to the city of Nampa, and so now can that money that was returned, can that be used for this instead of having to use it in the budget?
Yeah, Mayor and City Councilman, Brown and Caldwell has assisted us for years at the plant, all the way through Group F, which we just completed. We had a program in place where we hired city staff to oversee the program management, and then we weaned off the support that Brown and Caldwell gave us over the years, and we anticipate it saves us about $500,000 a year by having that in-house services right now. But they're still a valuable resource for us. In this particular project, we didn't want to mix the funds from one project to the other, so we're just keeping it. We did save money on that project, but we didn't mix and move that money over. This is strictly out of the PERDM funding.
So that 500,000 that we have left, that's going to be directed to another project then, right?
It goes to our fund balance.
Oh, I see.
And so we keep all the projects very separate in the budget authority for them. And so that one, if it's something that we're not using, then it stays in the fund balance since it's not authorized,
Okay.
or if there were savings.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bills, so let's, I'm going to read the action item of G, which is to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign the PERDM Sewer Trunk Project Phase 1, Madison to Canada Task Order Amendment, number 4, with JUB Engineers for Construction Manager, General Contractor, Final Design Services in the amount of $360,700. So your question regarding...
So the reason I also
This.
pulled F is because F section that's on our packet, page 240. So the question is, JUB, it looks like, if I'm understanding right, prior contracts 2020 through 2024, we've contracted $1,994,000, just shy of $2 million with JUB.
Correct.
And then we're being asked to approve another $360,000.
Correct. So those first...
The ambiguity is what are we
Yeah.
What are we getting for the next 360,000? And it just didn't seem clear to me, and
Okay.
red flags went off, so
Right.
I need the clarification.
Mayor, Councilman, we started the process of looking at PERDM back in 2020. We've had a series of design contracts, and we were going to do that in stages. Like, we were going to do Madison to 11th. That first stage, we did 100% of the design. Then we asked them to go a little farther, and now we're kind of going to the next step of actually completing it. So if you look at, I think the easiest way for me to look at it cost-wise, $32 million project, if you added all of the costs on here, we'd be about at 15.5%. That's with our proposed C&I construction. That's with the total design that we spent to date. That's with the design that we put forward to finish it, the $360,000. And that's with the design from the CMGC contractors, about 15.5. That is below much below what we pay for headworks. In talking to other people around the area, it's anywhere from 18 to 21% is typically on a CMGC. You'll pay for your design and your construction inspection. So this last final design wraps up the final portion from 11th to Canada. We didn't have center line profile. We don't want to remove that road once we put it in. They're going back and they're redoing and setting the center line to future build elevation to make sure that we can tie in all of our plats as we develop along there. They're also, the finished design wasn't done. And we haven't spent that 1.9 yet, by the way, so we could have cost savings in here that we're working with the designers right now that we could save still. So
Okay.
I'll answer any other questions. I know it's complicated. It's been going on for several years, but I've tried to lay it out, all the costs we've had to date. And then we added on at the end here the CMGC contract, and those have two contracts with the city. One with the designer, who we asked JUB to be our designer because they were already doing the design, And then we had the CMGC contractor, which we're bringing forward tonight. That's the contractor. Both those contractors are separate, and we have contracts with both the designer now and with the CMGC contractor. The benefit of that, CMGC contractor can get involved in the design. They can get in the room, the final design with the engineer. All those questions that come up when you go out to bid and they come in the first day and say, why'd you design it like this and how are we going to build it? They can say that before we get the final design done. And we feel like value engineering takes place there and ultimately will save the city money. So, but again, our total cost is about 15.5% of the total construction estimate, which is, it's for a ballpark test, I think the cost is
And I'd like-
below what we've paid for like the headworks.
I'd like to add to Jeff's comments, this is a very complex project. It's very deep. We've looked at a couple of different options and how to design the project, which we needed to do, and I asked him to do, to figure out what was the most cost-effective, which was the lift stations not going so deep. Going deep, you've determined to go deep, but it's deep. And so it's complex. And so, the one thing we want to do is do it right. So I think that's the intent here, is to make sure that, but I think what I understand you to say is the design, we did the initial design from point A to point B, we've gone this one, and now this is the final segment that you're talking about.
And I might add, we started out going
Oversimplified.
from point A to point B, and it was going to be a standard design bid build, where we went out to bid, and, the benefit of this CMGC is we can interview the contractor. And these are bigger contractors, they can handle larger jobs. We have interest out there right now, so we feel like it's going to be a better customer service to the community. They know what they're doing. The people we have talked to have large crews. They do underground. They can help with constructability, with traffic control, impacts to citizens. That's why we went with the CMGC. Ran that by the Water Renewal Committee too. They're familiar with the different delivery methods, and we talked about that there. Feel like this, as far as the expedited schedule cost savings, we felt like the CMGC was the best way to deliver the project at this point.
Thank you, Jeff.
Stand for any
Did
questions.
that answer your questions?
It did. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I would stand for a motion to approve F, which I have already read, but that is to sign the Purdom Sewer Trunk Project Phase 1, Madison to Canada Task Order for the Owner's Advisor Services with Brown and Caldwell in the amount of $99,952.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Griffin. Yes. Ingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
15G is an action item to authorize the mayor and the Public Works Director to sign the Purdom Sewer Trunk Project Phase 1, Madison to Canada Task Order Amendment Number 4 with JUB Engineers for Construction Manager General Contractor Final Design Services in the amount of $360,700.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds. All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, now we're good. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
So with that, we do not have any agency or commission reports tonight or staff communication, so we'll move on to Section 5 in our agenda, and that's new business. Our first action item is to elect a council president for a one-year term pursuant to Nampa City Code 2-2-2-1D. How would we like to proceed on that?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that Councilman Reynolds would remain as president for the ensuing year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I will say that Councilman Bills has done a very good job, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to serve. It's been a Reynolds. What did I just say, Bills? I'm looking at you saying.
I wasn't going to turn down the compliment. I do appreciate it.
You have.
They don't come very often. Sometimes there's a little bit of angst and all, so I really appreciate that very much. Okay, a little levity here.
Thank you for helping me get out of that one. Reynolds, I love it. You just can't take yourself too seriously up here because that's embarrassing, but here we go. So, Dale Reynolds, Councilman Reynolds, thank you for your work. It has been a lot of work this year. and you've worked countless hours. I appreciate your willingness to do that. I do want to say to all of our council members, you guys work hard, and it is appreciated. And so thank you very much. Appreciate
Madam Mayor, I
it.
just might add that I learned from my fellow councilman before me that was council president. He worked very hard
Yes,
as well.
he did. Councilman Haverfield, and I'll get your name right.
Call me Sebastian.
Yes, thank you. If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, 5.2 is an action item, and this is a request for reconsideration of annexation and zoning to RS4, single-family residential, and a potential development agreement for a future residential subdivision, Shadow Creek at Lake Lowell, at 1408 Lake Lowell Avenue, and this is a 2.6-acre parcel for Blake Wolf. And again, this is a request for reconsideration.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I move that we deny this request.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded to deny. Is there any discussion?
For clarity, if we read the letter correctly, it's still requesting exactly what was proposed, no changes made.
Right.
I would have to defer to someone else to answer that. I'm not going to. Is that correct, Rodney? Or would someone like to comment on that?
Mayor, those come to the clerk's office, so let me look and see if I can track it down. Sorry, Shar.
Okay,
Well, that's how I'm reading it, so
Okay.
is the other council members, that's, okay.
okay. So the clarity is that you have the understanding from the other council members that they agree with you on that?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. Item 5.3 is an action item. It's to authorize the mayor to sign an interagency cooperative agreement between the Nampa Highway District 1, Ada County Highway District, and the City of Nampa for the Ustick Road widening, Phyllis Canal to Oahe Storm project.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I'll say this on both of them because 5.4 is the same project. This is a massively big project. It is, and I appreciate the work of our staff. Crystal is not here this evening. My guess is, there you are. I just didn't see you there. You got pushed out of a seat. Oh, my goodness.
She doesn't have her orange on, like,
I know. I just looking right there. It's your normal seat. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you. This is a big project, excellent oversight, and it's taken a lot of work to get where we are today. So especially with the funding for this, so thank you for that. With that, we will move to 5.4 on the agenda. It is also an action item. It's to authorize the Public Works to proceed with negotiations for right-of-way acquisition for the Ustick Road Phyllis Canal to Oahe Storm project in the amount not to exceed $1,902,340.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
So where do we come up with this 1 million? Is that what's left over? I see the anticipated right-of-way acquisitions. Is that just a limit that we won't go over?
It is not to exceed that limit, but I'll let Crystal answer the question
Okay.
as to how we arrived at that number.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez. So clarifying question for which 1 million you were looking at. The request here is for $1.9 million. And that is the all-in estimate for the right-of-way on the south half of the road is what we're asking for right now for approval. The 1.012 million that I have under the funding cost breakdown, I wanted to be transparent to you guys to say that in the FY25 budget, we approved $2.51 million from impact fees. So I have $2.51 million of spending authority. Of that, I have spent, or I've encumbered all but 1.012 million of it. So I was waiting to get the grant money, which you guys all just agreed to receive, so thank you for signing that interagency agreement. So,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify to make sure that
That's
that
where
it
it
was
came
coming
from.
from the impact fees.
Yep.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So, question, Mayor? So the part I'm trying to understand, it seems like there's studies for both lights and roundabouts. Has it been determined as to which intersections are actually going each way? I wasn't clear. I didn't understand the information to know for sure which ones were doing what, so.
Mayor, Councilman Bills, for this portion of the project, there will be a signal at the intersection of Ustick and Star. We do have a corridor study that showed both signals and roundabouts would be improvements to either of those, to any of the intersections from Midland basically to McDermott. The citizens preferred roundabouts at that option. Part of the funding and with the right-of-way impacts, we did opt to put a signal at this location so that we could move forward with advancing the project. What you will likely see moving forward for the rest of the corridor is it will be signals from Franklin Road, moving east, Franklin Boulevard, north-south, sorry, moving east all the way to McDermott. That way we can connect it with our traffic management center. And then to the west, so from Madison moving west towards Midland, it will go back to a roundabout corridor after that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Griffin? Reynolds?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And our last action item under new business is 5.5. It's the first reading of ordinance annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation district into the municipal irrigation district for the city of Nampa. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Napa, Canyon County, Idaho, annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation districts into the municipal irrigation district of the City of Napa, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under suspension of rules.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Griffin? Rodriguez?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our new business this evening. We're going to move on to Section 6 on the agenda, and these are our proclamations. We're going to begin with the Women's Century Club Day that is coming. And I will read this proclamation, and then I understand Cindy's receiving it, but we could have all of you come, whatever you'd like to do, if you'd like to share a couple words after I'm done reading the proclamation, and I'll give it to you. So here we go. Whereas the Women's Century Club is the oldest service club in Nampa, founded in 1900, and is a member of the General Federation of Women's Club, started in 1890. And whereas the Women's Century Club was established with the goal of providing our community with a library, and proceeded to procure a Carnegie grant of $10,000 to build the first library in Nampa in 1907, opening its doors in March 1908. Adopted as our motto, the greatest good to the greatest number. And whereas the Women's Century Club in 1917 erected a drinking fountain for man and beast in downtown Nampa. Whereas the Women's Century Club furnished 3,000 rose bushes in 1940 to be planted in Lakeview Park for the enjoyment of all residents. And whereas the Women's Century Club donated $550 in 1956 and 57 to the Idaho Youth Ranch to furnish its first cabin for youth in Rupert, Idaho. And whereas the Women's Century Club in 1973 donated labor and materials to finish the historical museum at the Nampa Train Depot. And whereas the Women's Century Club established in 1984 a scholarship fund for high school graduates that awards annually 2 scholarships. And the Women's Century Club from 1990 to today raised awareness and funds for nonprofits involved in domestic and sexual violence prevention, continues to grant money annually to the Student Art and Writing Contest, and the Nampa Public Library, Veterans Organization, Salvation Army, and Meals on Wheels. Now therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 13th, in the city of Nampa as Women's Century Club Day. And I encourage Nampa citizens to join us in congratulating them on their 125th birthday. Congratulations and thank you. I tell you, this,
after 125 years.
it's amazing. And I tell you what, our city is different because of the work of the Nampa Women's Century Club. And I'm proud to be a member of this club with you. I just need to make sure my dues are always current.
Yeah, dues are due, by the way.
Okay, good.
We want to thank you on behalf of the club for 125 years. I'm new. 8 years ago, I moved to Idaho. So it's my privilege to be the present president, but I have ladies that are past presidents that are with us, and they are very proud too. So we're going to continue our work. We are small, but we're mighty. So if you have interest in joining anyone, please contact us. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. And here's this.
Should I come up?
Yes. Here we go. Do we need another photo? It's up to you. No, we're good. Okay. Thank you. I will say we need to continue to grow membership. So for the women that are out there, we need to continue this legacy of giving back that is so important. So our next proclamation this evening is Human Trafficking and Stalking Awareness and Prevention Month. And I think we have Taylor and Olivia here that will receive this. I'll go ahead and read it as you guys make your way forward. Human trafficking and stalking are two complex and serious issues that both involve power dynamics, control, and exploitation. Human trafficking is a nationwide public health, civil rights, and human rights crisis. Its victims and survivors are everywhere, with Nampa, Idaho being no exception. And whereas traffickers use force, fraud, and/or coercion to exploit their victims into labor or commercial sexual exploitations, and whereas anyone can become a victim of trafficking, but women and girls are primarily affected. Victims come from every background, race, and economic status. Traffickers target individuals who, for any reason, are vulnerable. And whereas the nature of this horrific crime creates an environment in which individuals face many barriers in disclosing and reporting what has happened to them. Whereas stalkers often gather information about their victims, groom and exploit their victims, and use power and control tactics like unwanted contact, threats, and harassment. And whereas all communities must seek to prevent and stop human trafficking and stalking by identifying these issues and promoting safe, healthy, and supportive environments. And whereas the city of Nampa is striving to become a place where human trafficking and stalking do not exist, where people have opportunities available to them, and where all people are treated as fully human and worthy of freedom and a supportive community. And whereas the city of Nampa seeks to be a place where survivors can move out of abuse into a safe, healthy environment, the Nampa Family Justice Center and the Nampa Police Department are committed to improving and combating our response to human trafficking through investigations, provisions of trauma-informed and victim-centered services, prosecutions, and ongoing training. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the month of January in the City of Nampa as Human Trafficking and Stalking Awareness and Prevention Month. Thank you, guys, so much for the work that you do, for bringing this up and giving us the opportunity to raise the awareness of this very unfortunate challenge. So I'll let you talk to us. Thank you, Taylor.
My name is Taylor Cook. I'm the Human Trafficking Task Force Manager at the Nampa Family Justice Center. And on behalf of the Nampa Family Justice Center, I want to say thank you to the City of Nampa, to our mayor and our council members for recognizing January as National Human Trafficking Awareness and Stalking Prevention Month. I also want to thank the Nampa Police Department for their dedication and their work in combating this crime. They are on the front lines every day serving and working to protect our community and the citizens that reside here. The Nampa Police Department has been at the forefront of fighting the issue of human trafficking, and we at the Justice Center are very thankful for their partnership in combating this crime as we work to identify victims and to serve them and to stop those that are perpetrating the crime. The month of January is dedicated to raising awareness to human trafficking and shining a light on the darkness that is human trafficking and stalking. Human trafficking and stalking, as read in that proclamation, do intersect, and there are many times that these two crimes do co-occur. Both human trafficking and stalking, like mentioned, involve power dynamics and control and coercion and exploitation, and both of these crimes are naturally hidden in nature. So the crime of human trafficking is largely underreported. It's not common that we have victims that are self-disclosing. And in addition to being underreported, we also have the issue of it being misidentified or simply just missed altogether. And so awareness and education of the issue are incredibly important, which is why we're thankful for the ability to shine the light on it during the month of January. Because we don't have accurate statistics when we think about this within the realm of our city or our country even, we do have stories and experiences in those that are doing the direct work with our victims and our survivors. So I'm going to pass it over to Olivia, who does a lot of the hands-on work at the Nampa Family Justice Center, to share briefly some of the stories.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Like Taylor said, my name is Olivia, and I am the project coordinator for our human trafficking program, and I'm just going to share a couple really quick stories about clients we've seen who've come in and be able to reach safety, self-sufficiency, hope, and healing, which is our mission statement at the Nampa Family Justice Center. So the first individual that I worked with who was able to find both safety and self-sufficiency came to us this year as a client for domestic violence, but through her intake, we were able to identify some red flags for trafficking and complete a screening where we identified that this client was in fact a human trafficking survivor who was trafficked by a spouse. She never received any care until she came into our office, and the reason she came in is because she was terrified that her trafficker was going to get his charges released from him and he was going to find her and ultimately take her life. She feared that he would hurt her, that he would hurt her family, just as he had in the past, unfortunately. We were able to work with this client and the courts in order to drop those, well, not drop the pending charges on him, but drop her concern, basically, and she received long-term protection from the courts, which is wonderful. She was additionally able to address her medical needs, mental health, and got community support. Additionally, this client just informed me that she received long-term housing where she'll be able to be safe and sufficient for the first time in her life, which is very exciting. Another client that we saw reach safety this year was a client who worked with one of our advocates for years. As you can imagine, someone who's experienced trafficking and stalking has an extreme amount of trauma, which makes it difficult for them to trust and move forward in the case management process. Her human trafficking was related to gang involvement, and so our advocate worked with her consistently, and one of the NFJC counselors helped this client process everything that she had been through. While she was coming to see us, she was still being stalked on multiple occasions, was in very unsafe situations. But through time, we were able to get her into some service providers who were able to provide long-term support and care, help her reach sobriety, and she is now safe and doing very well. She met with our executive director, Jeannie, and talked about her transformation, explaining that through the patience, kindness, and care that she received at the NFJC, she learned that she was worthy of love and started to believe that she should take care of herself. So these are just a few examples of people who have made it through, and there are many more who are working on these situations right now, but we're very, very thankful to be a part of a city that recognizes human trafficking and stalking and is working to prevent it as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the work that you guys do, and here's your proclamation. And I want to say I appreciate the work of Nampa PD because we've worked on some human trafficking things previously, and very, very important. So thank you. Okay, do you want to do a photo? Okay, quick photo. Here we go. Council, you've got it down.
We know.
You know.
Just say go.
Here we go. Yeah.
Sean still doesn't get it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is our public forum, and this is an opportunity for Nampa residents wishing to speak on a non-agenda item. So any comments, just as a reminder, related to public hearings tonight will be held for public hearings. And so do we have some people signed up?
Madam Mayor, we do. Our first speaker is Patsy Flattery.
Patsy, you'll have 3 minutes, and thank you for coming forward, and yes, you may. Doug will pass those down for you. Thank you for restating your name and your address as you get started.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling. My name is Patsy Flaherty, and I own Child Advocacy Services of the Treasure Valley. I have been in Idaho. I've been doing this work for almost 30 years. I worked at a domestic violence.
Go ahead and do your address.
712 12th Avenue North. I am located, it's the old house, the park's on my right, the Lakeview Park. So it's funny they talked about the roses. I love the roses. The pool is like in the back, and I'm looking at Garrity, and that's going to become important with my question for you guys. So I have been doing this work for over 30 years. My husband was a family law attorney. He died in 2019. You can tell I'm nervous and my voice is dry. I worked in a domestic violence center first, and then worked in a supervised visitation as well as running our county's CASA program, Court of Boarding and Special Advocate, where I helped train the volunteers for that. What I'm here to ask for, to let you know as well, is that in Idaho, in Nampa, I do in my office in that location supervised visits and supervised exchanges. So most of all my clients come from the courthouse. The court sends them to me, attorneys send them to me, and most of my clients are domestic violence, no contact orders. In Wyoming, which is where I'm from, I moved here in 2013 and opened up my business. In Wyoming, most of my clients were child abuse because I contracted with the Department of Health and Welfare. Here I don't contract with them, mainly because what I understood when I moved here is they make you transport. I'm too old for that. So all I do now is domestic violence protection orders, no contact orders. They do, the department still does send me some clients. In fact, I got some this weekend. So this is my question for you folks. This is what I'm asking for. As you can imagine, when the court sends us a client to use for us for supervised visits or even for exchanges, they're not very happy because they're in a strict, controlled, artificial environment. There's cameras all around my building, inside and out, and then we report back to the court. Same thing with supervised visitation, supervised exchanges. They're having to pay us to do an exchange, and a lot of them are not happy about that. The papers that I gave you show some statistics of exchanges that are done at police departments, and while I love our police department and they have been so helpful to me as an agency, it is still safer and better for the children when it's a trained agency that does those exchanges, because it's not only about the safety, although that's really important, but it's also about the emotional safety of the children, not to get in that conflict between their parents. So when I do intakes with the families that come to us, I tell them right off the bat that I'm 65, I'm old and I'm grouchy, and I don't take any of their drama. We do exchanges 15 minutes between each other, and I don't want there to be a lot of drama for the children. And so far, it has worked. So in 2015, did you have a question?
Well, it's time. However, I will ask you to go ahead and finish.
I'll do it.
I
really
appreciate
quickly.
that. I want to hear it.
What happened was at this point, I bought that place in 2015. It's not the first property I've bought in Idaho, but a client complained because I have a sign in front of my office. It is zoned residential. I'm using it for an office, which is the growing trend. To have houses instead of a sterile environment for kids to have supervised visitation. So the people that I worked with, Justin Green has been awesome. He reached out to me first. And then I also spoke to, I believe, Candace. She's with the zoning, and she was awesome too, so I have no complaints at all. But I'm coming to you folks twofold, to ask if there's any way that we could bypass and I could keep my sign up. Just yesterday, the court sent me a client for an exchange, and they would not have known until they saw that big sign out there. And then my second thing is, it is so dark right there. If we could, and I've got cameras and I've put up my own lights, but if there's any way we could get some lights up right there in that park area, I'm looking at the park on all sides of me, to help, again, because a lot of these are stalking protection orders, no contact orders. That would be really, really helpful. So I appreciate you just taking the time to let me introduce myself and to tell you what I do. And thank you, and God bless you guys.
Patsy, thank you for coming. Thank you for introducing yourself. And then, Rodney, I would assume you guys have connected, and you will continue to connect. And so thank you. We have a basis for put a face and a name together, and thank you so much. So we'll follow up with our planning and zoning team. Rodney will make sure that we follow up with someone from your office following this. Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Christian Case.
Hello, I'm Christian Case at 435 Arrowhead Drive, Nampa, Idaho. And I just want to say that I really thank you, Mayor and Council, for your support for the Nampa Family Justice Center. I really appreciate the work that they do with victims of human trafficking. I grew up in a family where my father abused my two younger sisters. And my father has been dead now for 32 years, and I still see the effects of his abuse for my sisters continuing to ravage my family. So I just wish that they would open up and tell their stories, get some counseling, but they won't. But anyway, thank you very much for continuing to support this organization. Goodbye.
Thank you. Christian, thank you for your comments. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Mario Martinez.
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Mario Martinez. My address is 18 Missouri Bend Road, Great Falls, Montana. So I'm a carpetbagger today. We have 515, myself and these gentlemen represent 515 carpenters in the Treasure Valley, 81 of those who are Napa residents. And we just wanted to come and commend you guys for the proclamation on human trafficking. What a wonderful thing to hear. And when you read that off, it gave me goosebumps, Mayor. It really covered everything in the indentured servitude that these people experience being human trafficked. The young ladies gave an example of what that's like in one dynamic for being a woman, but the other part of that, and the reason why we're here today to communicate with you, is that happens in the construction industry every single day. We find when we go out on job sites, and this is not unique to the Treasure Valley, this is all over the United States, where we'll see that folks are indentured servitude, maybe their status as immigrants are affecting it, but a lot of times they'll come over by virtue of a coyote or a labor broker, and they end up, being servants of those folks. And what do they bring with them? They bring sex trafficking, drugs, human trafficking, labor trafficking, and it all affects the community. It is unrealized tax dollars because they're not being taxed, right? That could go to that next police officer, that next fireman, And then, the other part of it is we feel very strongly that we have to monitor the industry to make sure that we're making developers aware, making general contractors aware, making subcontractors aware of the fact that these folks are out here. And they may not be aware of the fact, maybe a general contractor might not even know that his subcontractors are folks that are human trafficking or labor trafficking people, right? And so we want to bring that education and scream it from the rooftops. So we just really want to say thank you so much. We've seen this on the agenda, and we said this is worthwhile to come and say thank you to the council folks for doing that, and it's something we feel very passionately about. So thank you for the proclamation today.
Thank you, Mario. We haven't seen you guys for a while, so thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
if I could just ask Mario just one quick question. Would you still back up? I know what a coyote is. It's not an animal. A coyote. Would you please tell the rest of the council what you were referring to?
Sure. So a coyote is somebody that will basically, maybe they're in Mexico and they bring over people, from Mexico that are, they were looking for a better life, right? We were just talking about this today in our meeting, and if you break down the wages and everything, a carpenter over there in Mexico is making $6 a day. So if they get a promise to be made maybe $25 now or $100 a day, it's worth them. But these coyotes, they start lying to these people right from the get-go. Hey, we'll bring you over there and we're going to give you $25 or we're going to give you $100 a day or what have you. We're going to bring you over, you bring your family over, and then the next thing you know, when they get over this direction, they end up getting split up from their families a lot of time. They've got room and board that they get exploited on from the coyote because they're the ones that are providing everything for them, right? And so it's indentured servitude. So a coyote is somebody that's exploiting workers, bringing them over under false pretenses into the United States, trafficking them into the United States, promising one thing but delivering another, and they end up being servants.
Very good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Victor.
And we look forward to working with all the council on this in future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else advance sign up.
Okay. We've had 3. Is there anyone else this evening that had intended to testify in our public forum? Okay. Seeing none, that moves us right into the next item on our agenda, our public hearings. We have 1 minute. Council, it'll make us late. Do you need a break before the 1 minute stepping in? Nope. Okay, so in 1 minute, let's see. Could be 30 seconds now. We can't start early. Thank you, Shar. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Okay, we're ready to move to 8.1 on our agenda. This is our first of 3 public hearings this evening. And the first item, 4 public hearings this evening. Try to get that right. 8.1 is an action item. It's a zoning map amendment from light industrial to community business zoning district and a potential development agreement for 1.1 acres at 0 East Chisholm Drive. This is for Jeff Hatch of Hatch Design Architectural, representing Bryven, Idaho LLC. And the original concept is to rezone the property to match the zoning of the owner's adjacent property to allow for a future proposed property boundary adjustment. Jeff, thank you. Go ahead and state your name and address. Here we go.
Good evening, Mayor Kling and council members. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening. Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architecture. My address is 5119 Briarcrest Drive, Nampa, Idaho, 83686. Can everybody hear me? Okay, next slide. Oh, perfect. So the subject property is located along the interstate and adjacent to Ridgecrest Golf Course. We have a couple industrial commercial buildings to the north and west, and also across the interstate to the south. We originally were looking at this quite a while ago being just another IL project, but ended up rezoning it back to BC based on the uses that we were getting in the currently constructed multiplex building. And so the purpose of this application is more to just clean up some zoning, because right now we have a piece of property that has a mixed zone. And so we're clarifying that back to the zone that was previously approved as that BC. The remnant parcel is this canal. And so essentially we're just taking that and rezoning it to the BC adjacent to it. And that would also be the same for the future land use, having that as a commercial use. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Jeff at this time? Jeff, as you know, we'll have you back. Okay, thank you. Pretty straightforward. Rodney, is this yours tonight?
Mayor and Council, for the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. He actually covered a lot of, even though it was really short, it's a lot of what I was going to present anyway, so I'll kind of jump through here pretty quickly. There's the comp plan, the commercial designation on the comp plan, so that's consistent with what they are requesting. There's the zoning, a little closer view of the zoning. It's gone back and forth kind of over the years. You saw some of that in the history, but it has been BC in the past. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this project. And here's just an outline of all the different things going on in the area. You can see that the undeveloped portion of this property is proposed for a hotel. Design review has been done on that hotel. So it's consistent with the project or the properties around it. Really pretty simple here. Applicable regulations, you've seen all that in your packet. I've incorporated the engineering comments into the conditions of approval. These are the proposed findings. I think they meet it pretty clearly. And then here's the proposed conditions, consistent with the engineering report, and some potential motions, and I'd be happy to go into any detail if you need.
Thank you, Rodney. Council, do you have any questions for Rodney on this project?
Mayor.
Yes.
Well, Rodney, was there any development agreement as a part of the original rezone request?
There was, yeah, and nothing inconsistent with that development agreement is being.
So we don't need to be reconsidering the development agreement at this time?
No, because again, it's consistent. They're not proposing to change that development agreement at all, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Rodney, thank you. This is a public hearing, and do we have anyone signed up?
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up.
Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify on this particular item? Seen none. And online, we're clear? Okay. I don't see anyone, so I would stand for a motion to close public testimony.
Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeff, would you like to come back and give us some closing remarks? Excuse me, I moved too quickly through this.
Madam Mayor and council members, I appreciate your time this evening, and working with staff. Staff's been great to really try to make sure that we clean up some of these remnant parcels in Nampa, and happy to do so. I'll stand for any other questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Thank you so much. And now I would stand for a motion to close public.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve and move
Oops.
We'll start over and you
Let's
can
start
just
over.
read it off there. There you go.
I move to approve the zoning map amendment from IL Light Industrial to BC Community Business Zoning District to 4 parcel, and you can read the number, R311-870-110080 East Chisholm Drive for Jeff Hatch of Hatch Design Architectural, representing Brevin, Idaho LLC, ZMA-00191 at 2024 with the proposed conditions and to adopt the proposed findings of approval.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Bills.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Hammerfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. I do want to say on this particular, I drove by here the other day, not even thinking about this, just being on the freeway and seeing the industrial building that has been designed there. It's beautiful. It is so nice. And when you're up high on the freeway and you see the architectural element at the top and the roof, it's clean, it's great. I love it. And it's nice to see nice IL design. So, anyway.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, you should see more industrial buildings that are nice looking because of our design review.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mayor Kling, there's been a
Yes.
few golf balls that direction.
Have there been just a
Yes.
couple?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
from you.
It was a bet. I didn't even get close to it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ready for 8.2 on the agenda, and this is an action item. This is a zoning map amendment from suburban residential to light industrial and a potential development agreement for 2 parcels, and it's .66 acres at 0 Airport Road for Ben Simple of Rodney Evans and Partners LLC, and this is representing, I'm going to get this name totally wrong. Would someone else like to pronounce this,
I would
Victor?
love to.
Thank you, Victor.
Benigno Adiola.
Thank you. I could never have said it as well as you just
I
did.
think Sebastian could.
Thank you. The original concept was construction and operation of a contractor's shop for an existing heating and cooling contractor business. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening, and thank you for introducing yourself and your address.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. We have the project tonight. I'm representing my client, who is the owner of A&B Heating and Cooling here in Nampa, local business owner. He is rezoning this vacant piece of property that he has to IL. There's IL adjacent. There's BC to the north, so that he can build a contractor shop for storage of his materials for his jobs. We've received design review approval of the project already. We are in agreement with all the conditions of approval in the staff report. And we received a unanimous recommendation for approval from planning and zoning. I would stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Yes.
Well, my question is probably going to be a little bit towards staff than the app.
Okay. So we'll ask staff, and then we'll have you come back, and if you have any further clarifying comments, you're welcome to give them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Christy.
Hello, and thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is for a zoning map amendment from RA to IL at this property zone, or that is addressed 0 Airport Road. This property was zoned RA, which is suburban residential, in 1996. We have had multiple meetings with potential buyers on this property for years, trying to figure out what would work here. This project has since gone through design review and been approved last October. So it is just waiting for this rezone to happen so they can pull their building permits. Services are available to the property. Site access will be from Airport Road, and any future development shall adhere to access management policy. The only correspondence that we received was from the building department, the engineering department, and the fire department. The fire department states that they have an approximate response time of 3 minutes, so it's fairly close to Nampa Fire Station number 5. According to the comp plan, this property is designated as industrial, so it is meeting our comp plan. The comprehensive plan defines compatibility and industrial uses, and this complies with that. The light industrial uses are oriented to industries that are less impactful to surrounding land uses. There is a mobile home park in the BC zone to the north. So this being a heating and cooling kind of warehouse office is not impactful to those residences. So this is a good use for that. This will be regulated under the IL zoning district in Chapter 19 of our zoning code. So there are 3 criteria for determining zoning of a property. 1, it proposes that the zone is compatible with the comprehensive plan, which we have determined that it does. It proposes uses that are compatible with surrounding uses, which we, just from looking at the proposed use, we feel like that's compatible. Development of this property is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary because it has to make frontage improvements and it has access to city utilities already. These are the conditions of approval. These are your potential motions, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor?
Yes, so we have Councilman Bills and Councilman Haverfield. So we'll start with Bills since you
Okay.
started earlier.
So Christie, the properties in front of this one on your map, you can go back to that, show RA. So are those properties still in the county?
Councilman Bills, they are not. They are in the city, but they are zoned suburban residential. They're all residential properties. They have houses on them, but they're not in the county.
Okay, so appearance at the aerial, not by physically being in front of them, that there's businesses running?
Out of some of those,
Yeah. Is that, do we know, or is that?
I
even
don't know. I have not investigated those properties in the front.
Okay.
As far as I know, they're residences.
And so then this site coming forward is going to be required to have paved parking and landscape and meet all the
Correct.
rules of City of Nampa?
Councilman Bills, this doesn't have a lot of frontage, really only the access, because it's kind of a flag lot that goes back behind, so it doesn't have a lot of frontage that will require landscaping. But the area around the perimeter of the lot, they have proposed landscaping in that area. Like I said, the design review has already been completed for the building itself. It meets all those codes for the IL zone, and they do have to have paved parking, and they do have to provide ADA access to the building.
Right, which I understand. I guess my concern is it's great that they're going forward, and it just seems like there's a disconnect between the guy who's coming tonight and what he's required to do to meet the code and the requirements, and the properties operating nearby or adjacent. There's a real, seems a difference to me, but we're kind of prohibited from going out and doing site looks, so I'm going off of what's in our packet. I'm just curious how.
We would have to go out, take a look at those properties and lodge formal complaints against them to get them to bring them up to code if we determine that they are operating businesses out of those other properties.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Councilman Haverfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Christie, looking at the site plan that was developed by Rodney Evans and Associates there, it appears that there's only a 5-foot separation from, is that a proposed building that's 140 feet long by 40 feet deep? Is that correct? Yeah, the big rectangular shape, is that the proposed building?
Yes, the dark gray building in the center is the proposed building.
Okay, so my question is, since it's residential, around the property, is only a 5-foot separation required for setback?
Councilman Haverfield, that's in a BC zone, and we go by zone, not by a resident building that's sitting there. So the zoning between a commercially zoned property and an industrial zoned property, the setback is only 0. So it doesn't.
The RA is a BC, what did you say? Where's the BC at?
The BC is to the north.
I thought it was RA.
Well, the RA is to the south. And it is more than 25 feet away from that property on the south.
Okay, that was what was confusing to me as I look at, oh, I see. The red is BC, the green is RA.
Correct.
Okay, so the proper separation is there from the residential?
Yes.
That was the main thing I was going to ask.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
So Christy, I have a quick question about fencing. So it sounds like this has already gone through design review. And I'm sure it's here, I just need to go back and find it. Was any fencing required?
Mayor, there was no fencing, there's no fencing required, there was no fencing proposed. They're using landscaping as their screening.
Okay. Okay, and in IL, which this is being proposed, is there fencing required in the IL zone?
We do not require fencing if they don't want to use it. We have a number of different options for them to use for screening, some of that being landscaping. If they do propose a fence, it can't be chain link, and it has to be 2 elements, it has to be a really nice looking fence. So out of those 2 options, they chose the landscaping.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? So let's see where we end up with public hearing, and then we may come back with additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone that did an advance sign up.
Okay. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify on this particular matter this evening? Thank you. Feel free to come forward and give your name and address.
Sorry, I sat so far in the back. Mark Mitchell, 12355 Landau Way, Nampa, Idaho, 83686. My question is on deliveries. Will they receive semi-load deliveries or just box trucks deliveries? Because if it's semi, is there enough room to pull a semi in there with a trailer and unload, or is it going to have to be done out on the street?
That's a really good question, so we're going to have to answer that later.
Okay.
So thank you for asking it. Do you have any other comments or questions?
You guys look really nice after Christmas. You're a little too tan, though.
I am? Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
The top of a mountain, that's.
Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening? Okay, seeing no one, this would be an opportunity for our applicant to come back. And maybe you can answer that question regarding deliveries, and then also answer the question on fencing.
Madam Mayor, members of council, again, Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners. So yeah, I will clarify that while fencing is not required, my client will be fencing this area to secure the area for storage of materials. One of the residentially zoned properties that's immediately in front of this, actually next to the flag lot, is also owned by my client. He rents that out as a residential use. That does provide access to their parking, so this shared access will still have a cross-access easement over it as well. I don't know about the other homes in front there. We just put a 30-foot setback there to comply with the RA to IL zone, so I'm not sure how they're operating that. One of the gentlemen that lives in one of those came over to my neighborhood meeting, just really wanted to know what was going on. So, and then in terms of deliveries, I guess my client really hasn't informed me too much of what he takes for materials, how those are delivered, but based on the site design right now, it would not accommodate a semi-truck on site. And I think that if he was anticipating that, we would have designed the site a little bit differently. He also has another facility in another location where I know that he operates out of. So this was primarily for storage of materials for jobs that are upcoming, and then a very small office in it as well. If that answers your questions, I would stand for additional if you have any.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
So Ben, looking at the site plan, there isn't really a description of how long of a dead-end drive there would be for fire engine access without there being a T-turnaround. Since it's not described, what is the intent of being able to protect the building?
I believe that drive is about 100 feet deep from the edge of the
the roadway.
The flag portion.
Yeah, the fire department didn't indicate that they had any issues with needing a full hammerhead on the site. The way it's designed, it would accommodate that. So if we need to, we could build that into the site.
Yeah, it's just being able to get clear back over to that far corner to protect it. So I would assume if they haven't had a chance to weigh in on the decision, they will. And most likely you'll have a T-turn back there on the property.
And Madam Mayor, Councilmember Haverfield, and it is a steel manufactured building, and I know that they'll be storing some materials that probably have some flammable aspects to it, but yeah, I think the building department comment was that the fire would provide full review upon the building department or the building permit submittal.
And that will, you'll do the math as far as on the distances from a fire hydrant?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just to restate, it's your understanding that they will be building a fence around this property, which will follow the design standards, and I believe, Rodney and Christie, the design standards are not a chain link fence, but with two different, as you said earlier, a look to it that's a whatever kind of fence you're talking about.
Yes, Mayor, that's correct. It would be required to have two elements to it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, my understanding is he wants a solid privacy fence that also would provide security. So whether that's steel posts with some lattice or, wood, something like that, I'm sure that I'll work with him on that. But
Okay.
he did intend to secure it. Right now, there's a variety of different fencing, I guess you could say, out there.
I'm
So
sure
he'd
there
like
is.
it to all look similar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Council, do you have, yes, Councilman Haverfield?
I was just going to state to Mayor that there is a potential development agreement as a part of this as well, so you can add that language as far as on the fence type that you want.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for our applicant?
I have a question for staff.
For staff, okay. Well, let's go ahead and we'll move to our question for staff, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christie, can you just address what design review requirements will be placed on this building?
Councilman Haverfield, this has already been approved by design review in October. They were required to have two elements, glazing. There's not a lot to it. Metal buildings don't require quite as much just because of their nature. But they did have to have the two elements in the proper proportions to pass that. So, and then
guess
the
I
fence
didn't-
will have to do the same thing.
I didn't catch that in the report, so if it's already gone before you, then that's not something we need to look at in the development agreement then.
No, unless you do want to place specific conditions for the fencing, that's fine. We can do that just as a condition of approval for the rezone. We don't necessarily need to do a full-on development agreement to address that condition. We can just put it in as a condition of the rezone. And when I get the fence in, then I will review it. It would be a requirement anyway, so it doesn't even necessarily need to be a condition. I'd still make it go through design review.
Mayor?
Yes.
This is Rodney. I just noticed on the design review, their concept plan, they have a note here that they're saying retain and protect existing fencing. And so I think it may be,
There
if,
is some there.
yeah, if they're leaving it there, we don't touch it. So if that's a requirement, you want them to upgrade, or if there's anything else you want to do to that fencing, then a condition could be placed on this one. But again, if the design review committee didn't review it for the fencing because it was just existing.
Okay, thank you. You could look at that a couple of different ways, and that there's already fencing that is existing with certain parcels that this is abutting. As long as there is fencing, that's what's, to me, is important. It actually was, my thought was that in that it is a light industrial next to somewhat a residential area, that they provide the fencing, a privacy fencing, which sounds like is a requirement. If there's existing fencing, then I don't have a comment on that because it's already there, unless council has a thought. I don't see anything.
Okay.
Okay,
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay,
Mayor,
what is?
I
yes.
move to approve the zoning map amendment from R8IL zoning District and Potential Development Agreement, 2 parcels, 0 Airport Road for Ben Simple of Rodney Evans Partners LLC, representing Benito Arreola. ZMA 00192-2024 with all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and just to clarify, because we are not adding, it says potential development agreement, but what I'm hearing us say is there are no restrictions being put on in any type of a development agreement because it's already been through plan review and the fencing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
I think we have a pretty
straightforward.
design review already, so I don't think we need to add on.
Okay. Is there any further discussion with council? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Pingula?
Yes.
Hammerfield?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Perfect. Okay, we are ready to move to 8.3 on the agenda. This is another action item. It's a zoning map amendment from suburban residential to two-family residential and a potential development agreement for .28 acres at 0 South Garland Street for Bobby Phipps. The original concept is a rezone to match area zoning and for the future development and potential lot split and plat. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening. As you come forward, thank you for sharing your name and your address, and you can share with us what you're wanting to accomplish.
So I am Jade Duffin on behalf of Bobby Phipps, the applicant. Address is 16789 North Wentworth Lane. The applicant desires to change from RA to RD because the current lot is .27 acres, and under RA you have to have an acre in order to build a home on it. So this can't be built on unless it's rezoned. And the applicant wants to rezone to RD to match the neighboring parcels. It does look like a large area is RA on there, but that's actually the Liberty Park, and then also retirement home as well. So.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? And your first name again was Jade?
Jade.
Jade.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jade. Does anyone have any questions for Jade at this time? Okay, we'll have you back as you saw. Thank you so much. Christy.
It's all me for the rest of the night, sorry. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you tonight is for a zoning map amendment from RA, which is suburban residential, to RD at 0 Garland Street. This property was zoned RA in 1987. They are now requesting that they get to rezone it to RD so that they can actually build something on it. The property to the south is Grace Assisted Living. The Liberty Park is to the west, and there is a residence in the RA zone to the north. City services are available to this property. Surrounding properties contain fourplex development, single-family residential subdivisions, the public park, and the assisted living facility. The correspondence received on this from engineering, they do not oppose this application. General comments from them were they would, of course, need to provide frontage improvements if they're going to build on this property. City utilities are available, and site access would be from South Garland Street. The comprehensive plan defines compatibility with medium-density residential, the residences in the area, and the other uses. It will be governed by Chapter 10, which is the RD zone, when they are ready to submit a building permit. If it is more than 3 units, it will go through design review, but it will have to be townhouses, and so they'll have to go through a subdivision process. If it's a single-family home, just 1 unit, it will not go through design review. They'll be able to pull a building permit, and they'll be able to construct. There are 3 criteria for determining the zoning for the project. Staff finds that it proposes a zone that is compatible with the comprehensive plan, which is the medium-density residential designation. It proposes uses that are compatible with the surrounding uses, and the development of this property is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary because it will have to make frontage improvements, access improvements, and it does have access to city utilities currently. These are the conditions of approval. these are your potential motions, and I'll stand for any questions.
Christy, I have a quick question. Can you go back and share what the approvals are depending on what is placed on that property? So you mentioned if it's a single family, it's just, they can move forward with that.
Correct.
But if it is a townhome, does it go through a design process and then you mentioned a threeplex? And what I think I see is that we've got across the street, we have fourplexes, and then we have single families right next to it. So it's in that transition area?
Correct.
It sounds like. So what is the approval process based on what they're wanting to?
So Mayor, in the RD zone, because it's the two-family residential district, they can have a single-family home or a duplex, which is two families attached, without going through any extra entitlements. They would just be allowed to do that depending on the size of the property. And Chapter 10 would regulate what that size would be required. If they go to 3 units or 4 units, then they would have to, again, if the size of the property allows that, then they would have to go through a subdivision process to create townhouses.
Okay. But with this decision, they can move forward with a single family or with a townhouse or duplex?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And does that go through design review?
Only if it's 3 units or more.
Only 3 units or more. Okay, thank you for reminding me.
Yes, thank you.
Council, do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any advance signups.
Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular issue this evening? Seeing no one. Jade, would you like to provide any closing comments?
No, I think I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Jade before we close public hearing? Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, what is the will of council?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to move and approve the zoning map amendment from RA to RD zoning district for potential development agreement 40S Garland Street for Bobby Phillips at ZMA-00193-2024 with all conditions listed in the staff report and to adopt the proposed findings and approval as stated in the staff report.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Bells.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Hammerfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Angula.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, council, before we step into our last public hearing, does anyone need a break? Yes? Okay, would like to take a short 5-minute bathroom break, just very quickly, and then we'll move into this last public hearing this evening. So we will Thank you.
I just had some, thank you. Thank you.
But I don't want to set some precedent. I don't want you guys thinking that you're going to get that every time. Oh, you're making us look bad over here. Now I feel obligated. Did everyone get your chocolate? Oh, gosh. She's nice. I don't think you should that either.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
Don't kick me out, you guys. It's my first time. Oh, no, it's your first time. And I'm excited.
Okay, here we go. 8-4. Our last public hearing this evening is a zoning map amendment from RS 8.5 to RS 6, single-family residential zoning district, and RD, which is two-family residential, with a potential development agreement and subdivision preliminary plat approval for Ridgeview North subdivision. This is totaling 59.76 acres at 0 and 18901 North Franklin Boulevard. This is for Trilogy Development, Sean Brownlee representing Endurance Holdings. The original concept is a single-family detached and attached dwelling units, RS6 zoning district of 151 units, RD zoning of 84 on a total of 235 buildable lots with 49 common lots. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Kling and members of the council. Nice to see you this evening, and Happy New Year. My name is Bonnie Layton. I'm with NV5 representing Trilogy Development and the property owner in this application this evening. My address is 690 South Industry Way, Suite 10, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. And I am here this evening to request your approval of our rezone and our preliminary plat for Ridgeview North subdivision. As Mayor Kling mentioned, we are requesting a rezone from RS 8.5 to RS 6 and RD. Let's see if we can get started. So just a little background on the site. I've put a couple of images up here to sort of orient you as to what we're looking at. So for the rezone, initially when this property was annexed, the zoning map for the city looked quite different, and you can see that on the left-hand side. There was a lot of orange medium or low-density residential in this area. The image on the right shows how the city and the zoning designations have evolved over time in this area for the future land use map. Let's see if I can. Oh, I don't know what I did there. Oh, hitting the wrong button. Pardon me. Thank you. So as I mentioned, back in, this property was actually annexed in 2006, and the future land use map from 2007 shows the area in the circle there. Over time, these designations have changed, and what we see now is growth and development has really crept towards the area of city impact line, both the city of Caldwell growing to the east or southeast, and the city of Nampa growing to the northwest. In that time also, the development, since this project was annexed, there's been the development of the high school, and recently approved, the Valley View School District is planning on building a elementary school nearby. So this is a rapidly developing area. I think it was important enough for the city to take a further, more detailed look last year at this area and develop a Highway 2026 specific plan, as I'm sure you're all aware of, to really drill down a little bit further into what you wanted this area of town to look like. You can see on the image on the right there, the outline in white is our property. We are, as I mentioned, next to the Ridgeview High School, and then sort of the cutout there on our northwest corner is where the new elementary school will be built and will be opening in the fall of 2025, according to the school district's letter. So with that, we've got great access to the site along North Franklin Boulevard and Linden Road. There's also the Linden Road extension. I think we had discussed that in a previous project that I was before you. So there's going to be a lot of traffic improvement in the area with this development, a lot of frontage improvements along Franklin and Linden. Let's see. So access will, for this project will actually occur from Franklin Road and from Linden Road, and then eventually Spruce Street, which is adjacent to our southern boundary. So as the subdivision to our south gets built out, there will be a further connection in that location. And as the mayor mentioned, we are requesting a couple of different zoning designations. So the RS6 zoning designation is 151 dwelling units, and that's the majority of the site. The larger lots that you see kind of, so north is to the left, but the top part of the page from the canal up to Franklin and to Linden is where the larger lots will be. We felt like that was a good transition from some of the surrounding development in the community. And then we really tried to create an enclave of the RD zone that's buffered by the canal. To the west of us, we have ball diamonds. So we're really kind of insulated. So it creates a special little community of a higher density, but tried to minimize the impact to adjacent neighbors in terms of the density of that. As the mayor mentioned, our total project size is 59.76 acres with a total of 235 dwelling units. The gross density is 3.93 dwelling units per acre with a net density of 4.96 dwelling units per acre. And our open space, we are at 10.16 acres of open space, which equals 17% for this project. The required open space is 15%, so we do exceed the open space. I'd also like to keep in mind that we have the ball diamonds and a couple of the schoolyards right nearby. So plenty of opportunity for residents of this development to recreate not only internally, but also in the adjacent facilities. So initially, our phasing plan, we would plan to begin in the northeast corner of the site, providing access off of Linden and also off of Franklin, and then kind of work our way inwards and towards the southwest. So phase 4 and phase 5 would be our last pieces that we would bring online, the higher density project. And then we submitted some images. These are very similar to the other projects that, that we have built in the community and have brought forward, again, trying to provide a variety of housing types and also provide elevations with different massing and articulation at the street front, providing an attractive streetscape and landscaping. And with that, I am happy to stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
So Bonnie, you're quite experienced, so it appears that a good portion of the 17% of open space is unusable ground.
Councilman Bills, and what we looked at is the open space, using those canals as open space amenities. We comply with what the definition is per code of open space. We will have walking paths along those, as well as open space amenities interior to the site for recreating. But there is a portion of, a sizable portion of our open space that is part of those easements. You are correct.
So it seems then that or that the design is possibly meeting the code, may not be meeting the spirit of the code.
Councilman Bills, I believe that we've provided a lot of opportunity for folks to recreate. There is, especially in the northwest corner, or pardon me, northeast corner, there is just some area that's unusable because of the different irrigation ditches that come in together there. But overall, we reviewed the plan with staff, and they felt that it complied with that. I could drill down on some additional numbers if you'd like to look at that, or if maybe Christy can call up the landscape plans that we submitted with the application to show you how those areas would function. We do have walking trails, room for sports courts in there that we are showing in the plans. And then again, proximity to some of the other trails and facilities in the area. We felt like this was a great project, but I'm happy to listen or, hear of any concerns that you may have in terms of what you feel we might be missing. As I mentioned, we've got the sport court on there and some other large open space areas for folks to recreate in.
So another question is where the project barely touches an existing developed piece, that's RS7, and you're putting RD against that RS7 for a portion of it, it appears.
I will flip back to an aerial photograph. Are you speaking about the subdivision right there? Thank you, Christy. So what we do have there is there's a bit of a buffer between our southern boundary and that street. And so then the street does also enhance that separation from one density to the other, right in that location.
So what's the design plan? Are the townhomes fronting on that street, or are they fronting to the north?
They would be, let me double check here. Those would be fronting onto the street that we would be creating. At least that was the initial plan.
So we have an RS7 looking across the street at an RD project coming in several years after when this other one went in. Is that correct?
Pardon me?
So what I'm trying to distinguish is the other project was approved years back under the current under that time frame of code. Now the code has changed, and so we have RS7, and we're now going to put RD across the street effectively.
That is correct. Yeah, that is what we are proposing. We looked at, again, the layout of that and how it interacted with Spruce Street, and felt that Spruce Street would be a good transition. And Christy, I don't know if you've got a plan for the future street pattern of Spruce and that development. I know there have been some, you don't have that, okay. My belief is that it will connect out to Franklin. So Spruce Street will be an east-west connection out to Franklin. And so we felt like that would be a good transition as well, help to provide that transition.
So if I understand it correct, from comments that put in the packet that Spruce Street and the potential drain that may be flowing east to west there is going to act as a buffer between the RD and the RS7?
Yes, that is correct. Well, not the drain. I guess the drain is, Christy, can you point to the, thank you.
Drain goes southeast and northwest, is that correct?
Yeah, so we're rotated, right? So what we did is we took the area southwest of the drain and then north of Spruce Street. There's I think that's an irrigation pump house for the school district, or some sort of utility yard, right kind of at our southwest corner that you see that building right there. Yep. So it's not part of our project, obviously. So we felt like that was, again, another reason to have sort of a good transition and provide some density transition at that point.
Okay.
But you have RS in that triangle corner, correct? Not the RD? What would be a Spruce Street extension at the canal there? Or I'm trying to interpret what I'm seeing on your drawing.
Yes, so in that cul-de-sac in the southeast corner, that, right, go up, Christy? No, up in the, yeah, those would be RS homes as well. The RS6, pardon me.
We don't know if Spruce Street is going to be right adjacent to those RS homes, or?
Councilman Bills, I will cover this in my presentation, but Spruce Street is required to have a 25-foot landscape buffer along it, and it was proposed with the Ridgeview subdivision to the south. So when that phase, for the final plat of that final phase of the Ridgeview subdivision, the landscape plan includes the landscaping that this project will install.
Will you be going over that in your presentation?
I will.
How about if we let Christy do her presentation?
That's fine. I'm just trying
Are there
to-
any other questions
Mayor,
Go ahead.
for the applicant? Yes. Okay.
Bonnie, this is about the size that we are looking for master plan communities. Did you guys consider putting one here?
Councilman Jangula, we did not consider doing a master plan community for this one. We felt that given the kind of the unique shape and broken up nature of the area, we felt that just requesting the 2 pods of zoning could work well. As you may recall, to our northeast, let me see if I can back out. So to the northeast, we had another project come through at the northeast corner of Linden and Franklin Road that will have some business commercial in there. From a mile north of that is 2026, so there will be a lot of services out there. So we really looked at this as really filling in some additional residential options. Planning and zoning was very complimentary of the fact that we could have different housing options so close to and in walking distance of the 2 schools. So we didn't plan that as a larger master plan community because of those conditions that we know are coming. And then also, I think the city's goal was really to have this still as medium density residential, which we are within the range of density for the specific area plan. So that's what we followed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Bonnie, on your previous annexation, this has been annexed before, correct? And it was RS7 or RS 8.5?
That is correct, Councilman Griffin. It was RS 8.5 done back in 2006. So.
And have you submitted, or has the applicant submitted a plat that was with that application? I tried looking at it to compare the difference in the amount of increase that we're going to see in homes on this project if approved tonight. So that's where I'm trying to get the comparison of how many we're increasing if we approve.
Councilman Griffin, and I think Christie can probably provide a more detailed history on this annexation. This was part of, if I recall, a larger annexation and pieces that no longer are involved in that. And of course, the codes were different, so that their open space requirements and things like that weren't, you didn't have any. So it would be comparing apples and watermelons probably at this point.
And you had mentioned that the uniqueness of this property is that you have access, or potentially have access, to the parks and the baseball fields at the local schools. Is that public facilities for these neighborhoods? Are they accessible publicly to these neighborhoods, or is that something that could be limited in the future that we should know about?
Well, Councilman Griffin, let me get to there. So, of course, that is school property. We do see people recreate in school parks and properties. As I mentioned, we are providing our own amenities for this development in compliance with the code. But it's not to say that folks, any residents in the area, I mean, I see that all over any community, that they would likely, I could see somebody walking with their kiddos to the Ball Diamonds to practice, pitching or something. There's an opportunity to do that. But there is also room in our subdivision in some of our larger park areas to do that as well.
And as Councilman Bills had mentioned, the canals are not necessarily usable spaces. If we removed, and this might be a Christie question, the canals and the unusable spaces, what would the open space be at that point? Not that it's going to change the direction of anything, I'd just like to have the comparison. 17% is a nice number, but I'd like the real number of what possibly could actually be usable green space.
Councilman Griffin, I thank you, Christie, for bringing that up. So we've got a map here that shows what our open spaces are. So there's qualified open space and then also exclusive of the easement. So I don't know if you can zoom out on that, Christie, a little bit more.
And then a question that I might have for staff when we get up would be discussing the qualified open space versus the required open space versus your easements. And so I'll let staff answer that when staff does their report. Sebastian, do you have any other questions for the applicant? Or I guess what I'm thinking is I'm feeling like we should get to the staff report because they may be answering our questions and then we'll come back.
Yes, that would work.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield?
So, quick question, 10 Mile Creek, 15 Mile Creek, they're active water year-round, is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, how deep is that water feature?
I do not have the answer to that, Councilman Haverfield. I know that we've looked at this area with the irrigation district. I know there were some improvements that were being made in the previous project that I mentioned to the northeast. I think we had reserved some room for a roundabout. There's plenty of room in there to expand facilities in the future. Again, we're obviously not developing any of that northeast corner for that reason.
Are those creeks waters of the U.S.?
I am unsure of that. I would perhaps.
We can let Dancel,
my guess would be probably yes, it would be defined as that.
And what about the Miller lateral? Will that be a covered lateral or will it be open water feature?
It would be an open water feature.
Okay, so I just would like to know, again, if it's water year-round. Middle Creek is a great example of a water feature that works through a subdivision, and it's enjoyed by people with the pathway, and there's fish in it. The kids get down in it as well when they're not supposed to, but I've seen them in there. So sometimes those type of features can be quite pleasant to have. So
So I think I'd like, Daniel, if you could speak to this in a few minutes when we get into our staff report. I think our staff report's going to answer some of these questions. So unless you have anything else, we will have you back. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. But I think I'd like to move to staff. And then following staff, Daniel, if you could speak to the development of 10 Mile and 15 Mile Creek, because I know that we've got some long-term plans. And it'll be good to talk about how that will continue on with the city. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I think this is Christy. So Christy, thank you for bringing your staff report and answering our questions.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is for a rezone from RS 8.5 to 45 acres of RS 6, as you can see with the green bounded line, and 14.84 acres of RD, which is the blue bounded line. So in February of 2006, this property was annexed and zoned RS 8.5 to become part of the Purdom Drain Latecomers Agreement. There was not a development agreement approved at that time, so there was no previous layout for this property. It was all brought in with a project that they called Rock Springs. That development agreement and preliminary plat expired. The Rock Springs subdivision development agreement was basically canceled when the school went in. So through that, we've had pre-application meetings with the developer on a couple different occasions. There's been some revisions of this plat to get it to this point. To the north is Canyon County Large Residential Subdivision and Ag Property. To the south is the Ridgeview Estates, which is currently under construction. There are not homes on the boundary of this project yet. To the east, Canyon County Large Residential Parcels, again, Ag and city-zoned suburban residentially zoned properties in that subdivision across Franklin. To the west, RS 8.5, which is the high school and the future elementary school. As far as traffic is concerned, public right-of-way is required, actually is currently existing along the frontages at this point because the property was already annexed. A 25-foot chamfer at the intersection of Franklin and Linden shall be dedicated with that phase of the plat, and they should revise their preliminary plat accordingly. Casper, Player, and Water Oak are relatively long straight roadways. And while they meet block length standards, they may consider adding traffic calming measures. These are just some of the access and layout comments from engineering. As far as a traffic impact study is concerned, they did submit one in December of 2023. They updated it in February of 2024. It has been reviewed and is awaiting final comments to be addressed. They will be required on Franklin and Spruce to provide a northbound left turn lane. So according to the comprehensive plan in the Highway 2026 specific area plan, this is designated as medium density residential with 2.5 to 5 dwelling units per acre. This project is proposing 3.93. So it does fall within what the specific area plan has designated. This area did not anticipate providing any kind of commercial uses. They wanted to keep it residential near the school. So the preliminary plat is being reviewed according to Chapter 8 and Chapter 10 of the Planning Code. In RS6, lots not smaller than 6,000 square feet. The smallest buildable lot in the RS6 zone is 6,002. In the RD, not smaller than 9,000 square feet for a 3-unit townhouse and 12,000 square feet for a 4-unit townhouse in the RD zone. The smallest buildable lot proposed in RD for 3-unit is 10,444, and for a 4-unit townhouse, 13,178. As far as max sizes go, they can't be larger than 12,000 square feet for the RS6 zone. The largest proposed is 10,563. And for the RD zone, 15,000 square feet for 3 units, 18,000 square feet for 4 units. The largest buildable lot for 3-unit proposed is 10,646, and the largest proposed for a 4-unit is 13,793. So they are well within the ranges that are designated in code Lot widths and lot depths do meet current code requirements for both zones. So this is the picture that we were looking at earlier. A 25-foot landscape buffer is required along Linden Road, Spruce Street, and along Franklin. On the Ridgeview Estates landscape plan for the common lot on the north side of East Spruce Street, so the subdivision to the south, they did designate that common lot on that plat to be the 25-foot landscape buffer. So there are two different landscape plans in your packet that show that. One is for the Ridgeview Estates, and one is for North Ridgeview. And so that will be taken care of as those two things are built out together. Open space, so we do require 15% qualified open space. That requirement measures out to be 8.96 acres. They're providing qualified 9.71, according to the graphic that Ronnie was showing earlier. So they are providing more qualified than 15%. In total, they're providing 10.16 acres, which is only a difference of a half an acre. That easement along those drainage ditches is not included in that calculation. The easements add up to 5.4 acres, in addition to what they're providing with the 9.71 qualified. So they're still well above the 15% requirement, even without that easement. And then we do look at those open waterways as an amenity. If there are pathways traveling along them, they can be considered, a certain portion of them can be considered into their qualified open space. In this case, they are outside of that easement, and so they're not including the easement in the calculation. Does that answer your question? All right. You're welcome. So correspondence received. Again, Valley View School District, the Warhawk Elementary School is proposed to be open in 2025. Sage Valley Middle School has capacity. They are averaging 840 students. They have capacity of 1,200. Ridgeview High School averages 1,600 students, and I'm so used to saying square feet. I almost said 1,600 square feet of students. That's not it. 1,600 students with a capacity of 1,800 students. GIS has some requests for changes to street names. Engineering has provided their standard comments. Forestry has required that they replace some of the trees that they've outlined there just due to mortality rate. The Nampa Fire Department has comments about water supply and fire access. They're pretty standard. They indicate that this project is located approximately 2.5 miles from Fire Station number 3 with a response time of 6 minutes. Build out will provide the fire district with $368,245 in impact fees. This subdivision will add approximately 658 residents to the 235 lots with an increased personnel demand of 0.66 firefighter positions. The police department recommends a commitment to fund 1.06 additional officers and 0.55 additional support staff with this increase of population. So again, the 3 criteria for determining the zoning of a project, staff finds that these 3 criteria are met. It proposes a zone that is compatible with the comprehensive plan in that the entire area is designated as residential. It proposes use that are compatible with the surrounding uses. It is proposing residential uses. The development of this property is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary because it has proposed a subdivision layout that complies with adopted city codes. It has city services readily available, and it is compatible with the surrounding uses. These are the conditions of approval. These are your potential motions, and I'll stand for any questions.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Bills.
Christie, and this may be for Daniel as well. How much of the corner, the northeast corner, is being dedicated for right-of-way for that intersection?
That would be a Daniel question.
Mayor, Councilman Bills, I don't have an exact number on that. It would be the standard 50-foot right-of-way from the section line plus the chamfer at the intersection. But I don't have a specific acreage on that.
Okay, so currently they calculate what is future right-of-way and roadway as green space.
That would be a question for the applicant. Typically, when they look at that, they know what those right-of-way dedications are going to be, and they would actually discount that out of that calculation. But I would verify with the applicant that they have done that in this instance.
Has that been designated whether it's going to be light or roundabout?
I don't believe we have a final determination on what will go there. The most recent traffic study that looked at it before this was looking at a light at that intersection. But that doesn't mean that that's what will ultimately be there. It could go either way. The change in footprint between that and a roundabout, assuming the roundabout is centered, you're probably looking at maybe half an acre difference between the two.
Another question, probably for yourself, is being the 9 Mile Creek, 10 Mile Creek, there's obviously an organization who has jurisdiction over all that. Having experienced in the past thinking some of that's going to be green space, and the organization who oversees those two has a difference of opinion. So the reality is, how much of that area is really usable green space?
David, sorry, Councilman Bills. The yellow area on this diagram is the easement area that is not included in the qualified open space calculation.
Okay, so I didn't see the clarification because we've been looking at the other map that included it in green.
Yep.
So not knowing your legend, the yellow then is considered not included.
Not included. It is part of that easement calculation that's in that 5.4 acres. That's the easement.
Okay, so
it's not part of it.
But yet it's labeled as common lot.
Yeah, but it's not labeled as qualified open space.
Okay.
That's just ownership at that point of the homeowners association would be responsible for that lot as a common lot.
The green common lot that is noted there is
the pathway.
The pathway that is considered part of the qualified green space, not the yellow.
Correct.
So that common lot along there that is green is part of the qualified open space.
Christy, the number was 8.96 is the 15%, correct? And they're currently at 9.71. What's 9.71? Is that 16.5%? Is that 17%? What is that above?
I do not have a calculator in my hand. I'm sorry, I don't do percentages in my head.
Bonnie's doing it.
Mayor Clinton.
Yes.
Okay, David, you kind of lost me on your direction. Would you please explain what you're referring to?
Well, I was looking at what was presented to us in the beginning by the applicant.
Right.
And that area was colored green and referred to open space, and referred to that they were doing open space at 17%, the requirement's 15%. And so what I was looking at, based on the first slide until we got to this slide, and understanding this has a different schedule of colors and what they represent, I was seeing ground unusable being considered as open space.
Okay.
Now this slide is clarifying the question that, oh, no, that's really not open space. But when the numbers were given to us, we were looking at a slide that had those areas and those drains colored green.
Okay, I got you.
So I was trying to get clarification of what's really being proposed. Because the first two slides made it look very generous on the open space.
So unusable land is what you're referring to, as they're saying it's green space. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, it's just the difference between open space and then we say qualified open space is usable for people to use. The open space, it's still going to be there. It's still going to be open space, and it'll be commonly owned by the HOA, but the qualified open space is what's in code for 15%, and they exceed that, and it sounds like it's 16.25%. instead of the
So-
required 15%.
And
I
this,
think there's a conflict coming to say it's going to be owned by the HOA because it's really managed and controlled by the irrigation district who has those two drains. And so to have an HOA, having had to deal with HOAs in terms of setup and management and dealing with people 20 years later, I'm just raising the question is whether that should be to, that ground really should go to the irrigation district and not be saddling the homeowners with it because you can't maintain it other than the irrigation district. It's federally managed and managed by a local group. And I guess personally I've experienced the conflict. So I feel like we're perpetuating the future conflict on the residents. And so that's why I'm questioning a couple of these things. And is it time to look a different direction? But
Councilman Bills, I think what we need to look at is the irrigation companies don't typically own that land. It's an easement on someone else's property.
They may not physically own it by deed, but they control it
That
by
is
operation.
true. But
and
someone
you
has
don't
to
dare go
own
in there.
the property.
I've had enough conflict with two of the irrigation districts in the valley. I've also had good working relationships with them. I don't want to disparage. I'm just saying that it's one thing to turn it over and say, oh, this is HOA maintained, owned and maintained. Well, it's very difficult to maintain and get along with because green space and open space and maps convey something to the consumer. It's a different item that gets conveyed to the irrigation district. And so I just, having experienced a couple of conflicts and seeing a couple other things come forward, some that have been worked out, and it's been great positive for pathways for the citizens. But every now and then, the angst rises to the occasion. And so I'm raising issues because it seemingly is working from inside these walls, but it doesn't always seem to work outside these walls.
okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we had a question for Daniel earlier. Councilman Haverfield, is yours along this line, or is this back to what?
As a question to the
Okay.
presentation by Christie, where you had a slide that talked about the NPD and the allocation of officers. My question was, do you know what metric is used to determine if that's an SRO officer versus a patrol officer? Does the NPD provide that information to you?
Well, this would not be an SRO, I will tell you.
No.
Because the SRO agreements are totally outside of this. This is based on the number of people, residents in this neighborhood. That's based on that percentage, what they're saying, we would need to hire one additional officer and one half of the staff.
Yeah, I just know in a few.
It's not SRO.
Well, we're talking about the impact to the Valley View School District, and in a prior council meeting, they came forward and asked for additional help with an SRO officer in the
Correct.
Valley View School District. That was what prompted my question, is a part of this, and maybe I'm totally
This is
off base even
not a
asking
part of
about it.
that. Mhm.
Yeah, I just was wondering if that impact, what metrics are used, and if it's the MPD that's determining that for us, then that's all I needed was an
Yes.
answer for.
Yes, Councilman
Just a heads-
Haverfield, we received comments back from the police department directly, and they have a formula based on our capital improvement plan
Okay.
to determine that. I do not know what that formula is.
Regardless of what district it impacts.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so did we have a question, Daniel, that you were going to answer?
We can have Daniel go first, and I can go back to Christie.
Nope, you can go whichever you'd like to do. Daniel, thank you for pointing
Sorry,
that.
Daniel. It's going to be a string of questions, but they can be quick. Nampa Police Department says 852 anticipated new residents. Is that number accurate? Because I see 658 here.
Again, Councilman Griffin, I don't know where those numbers are generated from. I don't know if the PD's using a different formula from fire, or if it's based on family occupancy versus individual occupancy. I really don't, you'd have to ask them directly.
That's fine. The numbers given by the Valley View School District are current, not what's anticipated after the build-out, correct? 1,600 student capacity is 1,800. That's currently right now, today, without the build-out.
So they stated that they are averaging this on a regular cycle. So as the 4 years cycle out of the high school, they're averaging 1,600 students per cycle.
Prior to all this growth.
So they've got a little bit of room,
Very little bit.
very little bit.
My only reason for bringing that up is I do try and consider what the difference, but it sounds like I'm not going to get that number. What the amount of residents would have been at 8.5, RD 8.5, or RS 8.5, and now an RS 6. How much of a difference is that going to impact these numbers? I don't know, and I don't know what metric. If you could use a metric and maybe let me know what the difference would be in the amount of units. It might be frivolous, but I think this is, the numbers to me at Ridgeview High School are pretty high, where they're currently at, and this is without another additional 235 residential lots. With this metric right in front of me that I'm looking at, but I have difference written down. It's kind of a hang-up for me, but to be discussed later on.
Yes, Councilman Griffin. I think one of the things that we also need to keep in mind is that not every single one of these households is going to have a high school-aged student. So it's a cycle, and it's constantly cycling through the school system from every grade level. So they're not going to provide 658 kindergartners, and they're not going to provide 658 high school students. It's a cycle. So that's why they average through that cycle. It's not full currently. We, of course, don't want it to exceed capacity, but with that cycle, I think we're still okay for a while.
If we kept growth stagnant, but we're going to be seeing more increases in our applications, and 1,600 is right now today. Now we're going to add 250 here, and then the next project's going to have maybe 150, and then the next project might have a couple hundred there.
And we are hoping that the school is planning for that.
Sure. And the last question, Mayor, if I could, does the Valley View School District usually respond with commentary, or was this a unique response by them giving the numbers and the estimates?
Councilman Griffin, they have been kind of spotty with their responses. Sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. They get a request for response for every project that comes through, even if it's not in their district. So they pick and choose the ones that they want to send responses back on.
And with speculation added, do they normally do that for projects that have greater growth coming in? Or could it be a small project and a big project? They're just busy whenever they can get out a response. Once again, I'm speculating this is a significant amount. They're going to inform us this is a significant amount. So that's why they chose to comment at this time.
Yeah, and their comment really was just stating this. It didn't say one way or the other if they were in agreement or not in agreement with the project itself. They were just giving the stats for the schools that were nearby. Yep, thank you.
Christy, before you sit down and have Daniel come up, I have a quick question. The RS7 subdivision to the south that is currently in the process of being built out, when that was approved, did that have the requirement for 15% open space?
Mayor Kling, it did not.
It did not?
No, that was done, I'm taking a stab in the dark here. It was done in 2015, 2016-ish.
Okay.
And we did not have open space requirements at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, for Christy, before you sit, if this were a master plan community, would that meet medium density requirements?
Councilman Jangula, yeah, it would have to still meet the comp plan, and the comp plan is medium density residential. The master plan community really just outlines different zones and different uses that they're proposing so that you can see the entire thing be built out at one time. They're not proposing anything outside of what the comp plan already is designating.
I think what I'm thinking of when I think of master plan community, sure, it has the commercial piece that maybe they're not looking for, but it's designed very differently. It's got wider roads, it has more pathways, it just feels more like a neighborhood, something. And so we don't have a ton of properties that come, or projects that come before us that are close to that 60-acre mark a lot of the time, and this one does meet that. And so I'm just wondering why, since we've had so much discussion about them, maybe why this wasn't like a proposed idea.
Councilman Jangala, that's probably something that we need to discuss outside of this public hearing. Our master plan community guidelines do not require wider streets and wider pathways and more open space than our regular code.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We'll go to Daniel now.
Okay.
Stay close by.
Okay.
Right.
So Mayor, Council, the discussion on the waterways, they are under Pioneer Irrigation District's jurisdiction. The Miller Lateral is theirs wholly. The 9-mile and 5-mile, 15-mile creek is a Bureau of Reclamation facility that is managed by Pioneer, though any permitting or any of that still goes through the BOR for permitting. The 9-mile or the creeks would be very similar to Wilson Creek in configuration, and that up there very similar to any of the creeks really that run through town and go through neighborhoods. Beyond that, are there any other questions related to them?
Excuse me, could you speak to the plan for the pathway that we've discussed along, I think it was 10 Mile Creek, and how far out that was going to go?
So the Parks Master Plan and the Pathways Trail Master Plan, those would go from where they enter the city's impact area ultimately till they, on the Ada County side, all the way till they exit the city's impact area on the Caldwell side of the impact area. Those are planned to extend that full length at some point in the future as development connects those.
So were those looking for like a 8-foot or 10-foot pathway along those?
So our standard now for a pathway along a creek would be a 12-foot asphalt path.
12-foot, okay. So possibly grant funded in the future.
Those portions that are not filled in with development, like this one, then yes, we would look for grants or other opportunities to fund those at some point in the future. It could, depending on how impact fees, that could possibly go towards it. There are many funding options that ultimately could help fund those, but typically pathway projects, the ones we get done are typically grant funded. You are correct.
Okay. So, and this may be for Christy, but it doesn't sound like, is there any plan to put a pathway along the creeks? And I guess if so, they need to go through an approval process with 9 Mile or 10 Mile with Bureau of Reclamation or whomever?
So yes, they would require to go through an approval process to actually install those, unless they are placed outside of the irrigation district's easement, which I believe is what their plan is in this case. So the pathway would go in that common lot rather than within the easement area. That is, we have two different thought processes from two different irrigation districts that we deal with. One who allows the pathways within the easements with a master maintenance agreement. We have worked towards getting Pioneer to that point where we can do that. We're not there yet. We continue to talk to them. The current leadership from a staff side over there, we're closer than we have been in the past, but we're not there yet. I anticipate that at some point in the future we'll get there. And that honestly makes it much easier to get those pathways in, because then you're already in some encumbered ground that, the residential properties that we may need to go through are not necessarily utilizing with structures and that. But it's something we continue to work on with the irrigation district and try to nudge them a little, slowly get them there, hopefully.
So is the common lot pathway that's referenced there, how wide is that and how will that be finished?
So the common lot there, width-wise, I would say it's probably 25 to 30 feet wide. I don't know specifically.
That green off of the
yellow.
North Player Place is 20 feet wide.
Okay, and then is there a pathway being put in that common lot? And then is that an asphalt pathway and how
Yes.
wide?
So it would be the 12-foot pathway.
Okay. And then is there any consideration, or is it possible to put a bridge over the creeks to expand the accessibility?
So I would not necessarily recommend that at this point. If you're walking the pathways, you're going for a walk. The distances that you would travel along the roadways, along the 10-foot sidewalks, side paths that are going to be on that roadway, is not significant enough to prevent somebody coming down those from one of the other neighborhoods that may be up to the north, coming down there and then accessing the path that way. I think it would likely be a challenge to, especially with the confluence of those two creeks right there, it would be a challenge to put either a culvert or a bridge there. And with there being existing access from the roadways, I think that might be challenging.
And one more question. On the sidewalk that will be going on both Franklin and Linder, is that sidewalk improvement a requirement of this subdivision?
Yes, it will go in with the phase of the development that this is included in.
Okay, so the sidewalk going all along this subdivision, what is the width of that sidewalk?
They are 10-foot side paths.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just running on this string of questioning, the 12-foot path, that is going to be done by the developer, correct?
Correct.
Is there a standard that we use for every application so there's uniformity along the path the whole way through of the certain mix? Or I don't know the details of the construction, but I'm just curious on that.
Mayor, Councilman Griffin, we do have a standard drawing in our construction specifications for these pathways. And so they have a certain thickness of asphalt, base, sub-base, to provide a good product that will last into the future. Typically, the city maintains the asphalt, and the HOA maintains the aesthetics, the landscaping around those pathways on these city-identified pathways.
And Mayor, one more question that I know Daniel's not going to like. At the exit of the 10-Mile Creek, is there going to be a beacon for people to cross and continue on to the next path? And will that be part of their development agreement, or will that be a city's expense?
We will have to look at that in the future when there's nothing there to the north now. So there's no pathway there that it would connect to on the north. And so when that comes in for development to the north, we can look at that, but it's not something that we would look at this point because it would be it would be a crossing to nowhere, and it would not function as serve any purpose at this point.
Makes sense. So if Bonnie owns the northern portion in a future application, just plan on me bringing that up again.
Okay, are there any other questions at this time for Daniel? We still have the public hearing ahead of us, and then we also have the opportunity for responses following the public hearing. Okay, thank you. So let's move into public hearing.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any advanced signups.
So it's so interesting. Do we have some people here intending to testify this evening? I see yes. Okay, so if anyone would like to testify, just come forward, give us your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to share your thoughts. So come on forward. I think you're on.
Okay.
Good evening.
Julie Casanelli, and I live on Avellino Brook Court, which is by the fish hatchery. So I can...
And your address?
Oh, 1719 Avellino Brook Court. And I've never done this before, but I'm just going for it. So, David, do I have to say Councilman David? Okay, well, on Avellino Brook Court, there's only 9 houses on that street. And we moved in 2015 or 16 and bought a lot and built on it. Behind us is people that have been there forever, and it's a dirt road, Ruth Lane. And on this side is Serengeti. We took over the HOA from a company because we were in the hole. The irrigation canals run, right? And I'm a city girl, so I've never done country stuff, so I'm learned. And I don't even know who our people are that do the district and the water and all that. But we now run our own HOA to save money because we're in the hole. And if that pump went out to move irrigation water down to those 9 homes, and we didn't have any money in the pot, we'd be in trouble. So we took it over ourselves, and we followed the rules, right? I'm getting nervous, but that's okay. So I don't know if things changed because my husband oversees it, but I hear and watch everything. He calls me Mrs. Kravitz. But it's not paved, and people drive on it, and then they get stuck because Kravitz is watching them. And there's been fires and people burning, and irrigation comes and opens that, and you have to put in a ticket to have that opened. And sometimes they drive right on up, and sometimes they don't, and we communicate. But now we took over that HOA. Is that my time? Where's my time? And now we're arguing. This person at that end of the street argues with that person, and we're not following the rules. Well, I'm a rule follower, because that's how I was raised. So if we don't follow the HOAs, then who's going to uphold the law and the rules? So I don't know what I don't know, but this big community, are they going to have a person who runs the HOA and a board of directors? And then who's going to answer to them? So we have to think ahead and be proactive, right? Because I came from the healthcare industry, and you don't know what you don't know, but you better be prepared, because somebody said, well, we don't have much growth. Well, what about when people adopt a child or lose somebody in single dwelling homes? Well, I don't really know what that means, but I think I know what it means. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think your main comment was we do need to be prepared and consider what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
You have to have a plan and a backup, 3 plans.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm nervous, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that had intended to testify or would like to testify? I see a couple back here. Are you guys here for this item? Nope, just here. Thank you. So seeing no one else, and I assume there's no one online. Okay, if there's no one else here to testify, this is an opportunity for our applicant, Bonnie, to come back and provide some closing comments and answer any additional questions that we might have.
Thank you, Mayor Kling and members of the council. Excuse me. And I want to thank this lady for coming up and testifying. Julie, I didn't catch your last name, so I apologize. Casanelli. Gotcha. I think it's important for residents to actually participate in hearings like this, as well as comprehensive planning and future land use map planning. So obviously this is, as I mentioned before, a growing area of town. We're lucky enough to have a couple of schools right near this property that will make it much more convenient for residents that do have students that will be attending these schools to actually get to school. Councilman Bills, your concerns about the northeast corner. We do a lot of projects where we coordinate with Pioneer Irrigation District. for the maintenance of those easements. We do that all over the valley where, especially with Pioneer. So I would anticipate that that relationship would continue on just as it has successfully on other projects. Our site rendering is just that, a rendering to show sort of what the open spaces are. I think staff did a great job of bringing up the map that actually identifies what the qualified open space is and how those amenities will be useful. I think also staff, as always, did a great job of really helping to communicate what the city standards are, and obviously before we get before you, we sit down with staff to review our plans and how they comply not only with the comprehensive plan, as Christy mentioned that we do, but also with the zoning code, and making sure that this is a development that complies with the zoning code standards for the city of Nampa. We really do think that this will be a great asset for the community and for the residents that want to live close to a school and also have close proximity to Highway 2026 and some of the services there. This is obviously a rapidly growing area, and we believe we've brought forward a plan that really complies with many parts of the comprehensive plan, including providing a variety of housing options in this area as a totality. We see, a number of different lots in the projects, not only in this project, but also surrounding us. So I'm happy to answer any last questions that you may have. I think, like I said, staff did a wonderful job of filling in some of those answers for you. And we are in agreement with the staff report and the conditions of approval for the project. And with that, I respectfully request your approval of our project this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Question.
Yes, Councilman Bills.
So Bonnie, can we go back to your presentation? Because when you gave your presentation, all of the common area that was colored green, but as we found out through the discussion, all of that green is not necessarily in the calculation. So do you have a rendering that shows what makes up the 17%?
Councilman Bills, that is correct. There's actually, if you look close at this drawing, you will see that in the northeast corner, that is a different green than some of the park areas internal. Christy, maybe you can point to the differences. So we've got, that's a different type of color than where we have the areas that we have counted. So what this is showing is, we call this an illustrative site plan, more of a, it's a rendering as opposed to the technical drawing that Rodney brought up that really helps pop what is counting and what is not. And Rodney, if you want to bring that one up again, I think we were kind of zoomed in on that. On this drawing, though, on that rendering, you can see, there we go. So if we were to flip back and forth between the two renderings, you would see that the yellow space, both in the northeast corner and then along the Miller lateral, those are the same colors in the rendering as they are on the map. So we do have, it's a more subtle color contrast in the rendering, but really we do this exhibit as more of a diagrammatic, so it's easier for staff to evaluate what we are counting. It's easier for you to evaluate what we are counting for the open space. Obviously, the blue along Franklin and Linden is frontage improvements that we're required to make, landscape frontage improvements that are not counted in that. But then we've got, a lot of green space, interior that has pathways and park amenities, as I mentioned, sports courts and benches and things like that. And then outside of that is the yellow space that we will leave. We will maintain it in accordance with the requirements of the irrigation district.
Okay, Mayor, thank you for the explanation, Bonnie. For me, I didn't distinguish two different greens on your rendering. And so it appeared to me that everything was open space and counted as part of that 17%, which didn't seem correct. And it may be that future forward, I don't know, maybe other counselors saw the differentiation and I'm the only one getting up there missing it. So
hopefully you can see now, thank you for zooming in. So where the 15 Mile Creek, that has a kind of different color and texture than down below, like in that park area that has more of a grass type. However, Councilman Bills, in the future, I can request that this type of exhibit punch up the difference a little bit, so it's a little clearer for those looking at this. I realize when they render these, by the time we get them photocopied and into presentations, that distinction can get lost a little bit.
well, not to be derogatory, but candidly, the rendering is deceptive.
Okay.
And so from the standpoint of looking at it and the public at large looking at it, they would believe that all of that is greenscape, that's going to be usable greenscape, and we're above the percentage. And the reality is it's really pretty minimal above, and it's really not a great deal of usable. And, you know, when you look at the one with the green and the yellow, from my perspective, I realize this is criticism. I've been there and so forth. I know the drill. It's just when you're asked to look at that and hear this and et cetera.
Councilman Bills.
I was rah-rah until I learned how much is not actually a part of that appears to be a part of. Okay, enough criticism.
I'd like to ask if you could share what amenities you're actually looking at putting in what areas. It is difficult to know what the size of some of those open green space areas are, and what amenities you're planning on including in this development.
Mayor, in addition to that, can we see it in comparison with the phased approach as well? Because I know I saw the one pickleball court or whatever that's going to end up being. I'm sure pickleball, because it's the greatest ever, was in phase 4, but nothing in 1, 2, 3 from my perspective. So if we could go back to the phases.
Share with us which phase is going in when and when the other amenities are coming in.
Okay, Mayor Kling and members of the council. So Christie's bringing up the rendering. We also have, and I don't know if it would be better to switch to the black and white landscape, the set of landscape plans that we submitted that would show, let's see. So this is the phasing plan. As I mentioned, we are going to start in the northeast corner and then work our way kind of to the southwest. And so in that, we've got, so in phase 1, we've got some pretty significant frontage improvements that we've got to do. And so then in phase 2.
So would your pathway along that easement area with your drains, that
would be
10-foot
part of it.
pathway would be completed?
That is correct,
in
Mayor.
phase 1?
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be part of it, as well as the pedestrian access along Linden and Franklin, part of phase 1. And then also we've got the landscape areas, the large landscape area at the front of the subdivision off of Linden right there, as well as those. There's another couple common lot areas just north of, Christie, like right, no, scoot over, right, yeah, a little bit more to the left. So we've got a common lot there. So we've got a lot of open space that we're landscaping and pathways that we're providing with that, along with the roadway frontage. Part of Phase 2, we have on the landscape plan right there, we've got an open space with a sport court there as well. So again, that is going to be accessible for the Phase 1 residents and Phase 2 residents.
And when you say a sport court, is that a combination? Is it tennis, basketball?
It is a half basketball court is what we're showing on our landscape plans at this time.
basketball.
Yep. And Christy, do you mind turning to that sheet on the landscape plan? Do you think that would be helpful?
And is there any open green space in Phase 1 and 2, other than that area to the north?
Yes, so there we go. So, okay. So as you can see, we will be installing, this is back to the northeast corner, so we'll be installing the pathway along the 15-mile and 10-mile creek easements. Again, as Christy mentioned, we are not counting open space that's in that easement, although I think we would be eligible to count a portion of it because it is still a natural open amenity.
So the space that is that's towards the front of the subdivision, that you can see that's right there, is that part of, so you've got the green space right on Linden, that's just open green space as you come in, but this next section of green space, if you go to the next section, it says lawn, shrub bed. I'm not sure how big that one is. Is that part of Phase 1?
Yes, that is correct. That's all part of Phase 1.
Okay. Yep. And is there anything going in that area?
So what we are showing in those areas are big lawn spaces and then a pathway that will go from Casper Avenue that will connect down to, it kind of heads to the top right corner of the screen.
Okay.
And then, Christy, if you could pan over some more, please.
That next, where the cursor is right now, how big of an area is that? So where that blue box is, there's a triangular area right there?
I could pull that up on the plat.
I'm just curious how big those areas are.
Okay.
And if they're truly usable.
Half basketball courts of 50 by 50, and that could fit 7 of those in it, so I could only assume it's a 10 by 15.
Okay.
And that's a speculation, Rondi, so please, if I'm spreading misinformation.
No, we've got.
This is 24,420 square feet.
The whole green, so which one? Like that number 5 right there, where the 5 is? 30,000 square feet?
Yeah,
Yes.
that goes the other one.
Yeah.
So if you see this one, that's the number, block 4.
That's 20,000, which an acre is 40,000.
Yeah, so it's a half acre. So what's in that, in all those homes, separating those homes, is a half acre of green space. It's not that much.
And that's a pathway also.
That's correct.
Okay, so it really is an open, usable space that kids can go out and play. It's pretty small.
Correct.
Okay.
There is a mix of types of spaces. So some of those will be for walking and pathways, and then the larger spaces where kids can go out and play.
Could you show us larger spaces where you can actually go out and play a game and play, and then can you show us in this? Because I think that's something that we're missing at this point.
Christy, can you, or Rodney, can you turn back to that one that had the green? That I think that one was the clearest one in terms of showing acreage sizes. No. So if you pan down to, so lot number 3 right there, so that's where we were showing that we would have a half basketball court for that one. So there's that space. Right there, we've got another large open space that's over an acre in total, but a pretty sizable. If you look at those lots, I believe those are 54 feet wide. above
what are you-
RS6, so the dimension is quite wide.
What are you thinking of doing in that? Is that just grass?
In that space, I don't want to speak out of turn, so let me look at the landscape plan that we submitted with that. Thank you, Christy. Probably have to go, there we go. So we were doing that one as just like an open lawn space and a picnic shelter. Also, you can see the label below, Christy, if you pan down, or Rodney, you'll see that label oops. So in that's an open lawn space, and then you see the label there that's kind of sitting on the lots that says picnic shelter.
Okay.
And then.
So I'm going to have you pause. Sebastian? No talking, I'm sorry. During a public hearing, we cannot have conversations, so I hate to do that, but
I'll write down my question.
thank you. I would
Christy,
appreciate it.
Can you guys pan up a little bit? It says type 4, so there's a workout station in that area as well. So we've detailed out in that large space, there'll be room to recreate, the workout station, and then this shade area. Can we pan to the next large open space?
Something I might recommend for future, my goodness, highlight these things so we're not having to dig for them, because this is very time-consuming and tedious, trying to figure out what amenities are there, and that is really, really important.
I will definitely do that
Thank you.
in my next presentation. And
Thank
I
you.
apologize that I should have zeroed in on that in a little bit more detail to walk through those in a little bit more detail. So I do apologize. They're here, but maybe an image that actually has some arrows and exactly what they are. I can 100% do that in my next presentation. And then on the next sheet, for the enclave, the smaller ones. There we go. So now we've got the pickleball court, we've got some additional parking areas, which is required, and there we go. So pickleball court with another picnic shelter for this area as well. So lots of walking trails, a half basketball court, a pickleball court, a couple of picnic shelters in there. I think will really make this a very usable open spaces for the community, and really provides connectivity throughout the site.
Great, thank you. Councilman Haverfield.
Bonnie, I just want you to know I really appreciate your presentation. If you had 15 acres set over on the corner of the property and you were saying that meets the criteria, deal with it, that'd be one thing. What you've done is a great job of intermixing throughout the development green space that's open and accessible to the whole development. And I just want you to know, from my personal perspective, I like what you've done. I like how it's laid out. I think it's very well thought through. I've zoomed in and out to define these things myself, so I had no concern about the amenities. Just the mere fact that you've got that whole big northeast corner that's available as an additive amenity that's not even a part of your metrics, and along with that drain that runs diagonal across it. I want to commend you. I want you to feel like that I appreciate what you've done. And, you know, you faced a lot of scrutiny, and I'm sorry for that. I don't think that's our place. You've met the criteria, but that's just my personal observations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Haverfield.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yes?
as a follow-up to that, in a rezone, are we, and this is the question I was asking Todd, because you have already been annexed, correct?
That is correct.
In a rezone, are we able to be this nitpicky on certain issues because it's a rezone, not an annexation?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Griffin, I think what you're getting at is with an annexation, you have a lot more discretion under the general, it's just not the right time, doesn't fit the city, it's not in the public interest, in that initial annexation decision. With just a rezone, that's a little different than the annexation application, and your decision should focus on and be driven by your criteria that are in your ordinance for the rezone, which is 10.2-3. Is the proposed amendment in harmony with the city's comprehensive plan and the land use map? Is the proposed amendment or rezone, does it provide for proposed use or uses that would be at least reasonably compatible with the adjoining uses? And then is the proposed amendment in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary? So largely, that's, do they meet the criteria? Do you have testimony that says, well, this needs more? You have something in the record that says this needs more. Those are the kind of things you'd focus on to I think, look at something beyond what the code may require. But is the breadth of your consideration as broad as annexation? I don't think so.
Thank you. And then a follow-up on a different note.
Okay.
Does the path connect into another path on the eastern portion, or is it dead end, dead end?
Councilman Griffin, it will connect to the pathway on the eastern portion along Franklin. There's the pathway that Daniel testified to. So there's the right-of-way section that we're required to build to that are part of the city specs. So the pathways that we have shown along the irrigation easements, those would connect into. Go ahead, Daniel.
Mayor, Councilman Griffin, the only other sections of pathway along the 10 Mile Creek are over near Canada. So currently there are other sections of that pathway that have been installed, but they are not adjacent to this project yet.
So to be built out, right now it would just be a path from one corner to the other, okay.
Correct. They, as Bonnie did state though, they do connect to the side paths along Franklin, so you could easily make a nice loop there, along there, yes.
Along Franklin and Linden.
And Franklin, Linden, then down the path,
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, our internal pathways that are along those would connect out.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any additional questions for Bonnie? Okay, so Bonnie, do you have any additional closing remarks?
No, other than I thank you again for your time, as always. I think they're very thoughtful questions, and I have definitely made some mental notes for next time for better highlighting of the amenities that we will be providing.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to close public hearing. That said, let's make sure we don't have any additional discussion that involves our applicant. Councilman Haverfield?
Just a quick question for Christy. The rear and front setbacks are what in this?
Councilman Haverfield, for the garage portion is 20 feet from the property line, the front property line, 15 feet to the livable space in the front, from the front property line, and 15 feet from the rear.
So there's an additional green space then that would be behind and in front of each of these homes, along with a 5-foot setback off the sides?
Correct.
So there'd be an additional 10 feet then between each of the lots?
And that's provided that they even build out to those setbacks, which oftentimes they don't.
They just can't build to the property line, obviously.
Correct.
So you might, Bonnie, in the future too, look at what your building footprint area would be as well in your presentation, because that goes along with all the green space that's identified. There's quite a bit more that's not even identified in your graphic. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is an opportunity now for council discussion and/or a motion. Where would we like to go?
I'll make a motion, Mayor. And by the way, I know who Gladys Kravitz is. She was a neighbor back in the 70s.
Okay. Okay, whoops, we can't have a discussion, though.
I know.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilman
Okay,
Rodriguez.
I'll make it. I move to approve the zoning map amendment from RS 8.5 to RS 6 zoning district NRD zoning district and subdivision preliminary plat approval for Ridgeview North subdivision at 0 and 18901 North Franklin Boulevard for Trilogy Development Incorporated. Sean Brownlee, representing Endurance Holdings LLC, ZMA 00188 at 2024 at SPP 00145 2024 without conditions listed in the staff report, and to adapt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report. And I'm not aware of any other attachment modifications.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I just have to say it because it's always on my mind, but I like diversity of housing and where we have so much of it congested right underneath it, and then that subdivision, and then above it, we're gonna have the same, it's all the same developer. We know that people like to live next to schools and churches, and I just feel like the RS 8.5 is a better fit for that area, even though it goes against our comprehensive plan there. But I just think if we had so many discussions about master plan communities, I think it gives us an opportunity with a piece of land that is actually big enough to harbor one, that we could actually create something really beautiful right here next to this school. So I just needed to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Chingula.
No.
Bills.
No.
Reynolds.
No.
Griffin.
Yes.
Hammerfield.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Mayor, there's a tie.
I have a feeling that was a thought there. This is a difficult one. As I think about it, we don't have any development agreement with it. That said, what I struggle with is that it fits within our comp plan. Is that correct? And we have so many times denied things that fit within our comp plan. And I think, I don't care for the density, the added density that you've put in there. However, it does fit within our comp plan, and as a developer, you've come in and you've done exactly what you needed to do. I may get in trouble with this one, but I think I'm going to say yes. We're going to go ahead and move forward with it. That said, please make sure it's nice, the design standards are nice, set the bar as a great place for families to live, and then ensuring the connectivity that goes through. I think the waterways through there can be beautiful. I think the walking paths can be beautiful. I know it's very expensive to do these, and so what I hope the outcome is that we've got a really nice subdivision. Let's get our standards right up there, and thank you. So I'm going to say yes.
And Mayor, the motion carries.
Okay. That is the end of our public hearings for tonight. We're going to move to number 9 on the agenda. And this is unfinished business. So the first on 9.1 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RD two-family residential for Cornerstone subdivision at 1500 West Orchard Avenue for William Mason, Mason and Associates, representing Jose Hernandez, and it's requested to pass under suspension of rules.
In order to the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 1500 West Orchard Avenue, parcel R31373, located in the southeast 1/4 of Section 17, Township 3 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, comprising approximately 1.23 acre, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RD two-family residential, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official zoning maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RD two-family residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for conditions of approval, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Angula.
Yes.
Mills. Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
9.2 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to light industrial for future development at 8615 Cherry Lane for Tanner Lindquist, representing A1 Cherry LLD, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Napa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 8615 Cherry Lane, parcel R3104601000, located northwest 1/4 of Section 10, Township 3 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, totaling 2.0 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Napa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Napa and be zoned IL Light Industrial on 2.0 acres more or less, declaring that said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Napa, determining that said annexation and zoning is the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said properties to the official zoning maps of the City of Napa and to designate said properties as IL Light Industrial on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for conditions of approval, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under suspension of rules.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Griffin. Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our meeting, and I'd stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the comp plan's been changed, so all they've done is gone from what they had, what the comp plan allows. My whole issue is we get